Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com. Shop there today and make yourself look good.
Welcome, everyone, to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Guess what, guys? It's going to be a fantastic show. We have remote viewer and UFO researcher Dr. Courtney Brown joining us tonight for hours 1 and 2. We also have Drew Banke joining us in hour 3 with the After Hours wrap-up, along with some Steve Stockton Tales and Told Missing Person Mysteries as well. It's going to be a fantastic show. Make sure you don't go anywhere and bring a friend tonight. Also, share the show if you can. Let me go ahead and see who has the medal positions for the night. Looks like, courtesy of Race Fan, we have Mothman coming in tonight with the gold. We have Paramarv with the silver tonight, and then Kitty Catty Whack with the bronze. Appreciate you guys coming on in bright and early for the show. Let's go ahead and get it started, get to as many people as possible. Kitty Catty Whack, hello, November. Right, let's continue to move the needle. Let's move the needle forward. Appreciate that, Kitty Catty Whack. Feliz Dia de los Muertos, which is today as well. Mel WD40 getting us lubed up for the show, saying hello, Mr. Rob G. Hey, Mel, thanks for coming on in. We got Roger Murray saying November 1st or 11th. UFO researcher Bill Moore, 86th birthday. That's awesome information. Thanks for keeping us informed. Roger Murray, we do appreciate you. Also saying Dr. Courtney Brown, welcome to the show. We appreciate you. We got Flat Sixer in the building. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see who else has come on in here. We have Lil Cam 51 getting the job done, saying present. Thanks for coming on in. Robert Lamont Jr., thanks for showing up here as well. Let's see, getting down the list. Kurt M. Appreciate you coming on in as well. We do have Jerry Carter. Thanks for coming on in, Jerry Carter. Let's see, who else do we have out there? Kitty Catty Whack getting it started with the super sticker. Appreciate you getting the thing started here. That is support for Spaced Out Radio. We do appreciate that. Let's see, who else is all here? It looks like we are current for right now, which is cool. So let's go ahead and get the podcast side started tonight. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. Me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have remote viewer, UFO researcher, Dr. Courtney Brown joining us for hours 1 and 2. Then we have Drew Banky with the After Hours Wrap Up in Hour 3, along with Steve Stockton Tells and Told Mr. Person Mysteries, UFO and Weird News, jam-packed show, guys. Let's get ready to go right about now. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I am your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight, we're broadcasting on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the world. Don't forget, you can access the archives absolutely free, youtube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on X and Instagram at Spaced Out Radio and at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is still and always spacedoutradio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with SR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and so much more. We're going to have a fantastic show tonight. We have Dr. Courtney Brown joining us, who is a remote viewer, UFO researcher. It has a lot of things going on. We're going to talk about some really compelling subjects here tonight, so you want to make sure that you stay right here for hours 1 and 2. Again, also, we have Drew Banky joining us in hour 3 with the After Hours Wrap-Up. Steve Stockton Tells It Told Mr. Person Mysteries is going to be a jam-packed show, so make sure that you're right here. You don't go in, and if you leave, just come right back. We're going to jump right on into the show here tonight and go ahead and welcome our guest, Dr. Courtney Brown. Hello, Dr. Courtney Brown. How are you tonight?
Hey, Rob. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
Definitely. I'm always out there looking for interesting conversations to have and, in perspectives. I like thinkers, people who are thinking outside the box, trying to actually answer questions to what it is that we're dealing with here, because it's confusing to say the least. And, it's anytime we can get someone to kind of give some enlightenment, that's what I call moving the needle. So appreciate you coming in. And also, as we start every other interview, kind of just wanted to know how you even got started in this. Like, were you a young person that had experiences, or what led you to doing what you're doing today?
Well, actually, that's a long story because it goes all the way back when I was a kid. So even before that. So let's just get a little bit closer to the current time period. So I'm a professor in a major university, and at that university, after tenure, I was introduced to the remote viewing project that was in the military, and they were coming out. The military was releasing them, a few of them, into the public, with the idea that it would stay within the New Age bookstore community. Anyway, from that, I learned how to do the military remote viewing, and it's an interesting story about how that turned out. But then afterwards, I decided it wasn't, I'm a professor, I'm a scientist. And so I decided it just wasn't rigorous the way I wanted it to be. It didn't do the right stuff. So we started, I had a couple best-selling books back in the 1990s on remote viewing, and I with an application towards extraterrestrial life. And I decided we had to create an institute, an actual place where this could be taught, but also where we would do research into it. And that's where Farsight came about. The Farsight Institute is a nonprofit, but Farsight is also now a large movie business that focuses just on the subject of remote viewing and extraterrestrial life and mysteries, archaeological, religious, and everything, but applications of remote viewing. We have our own streaming service called farsightprime.com. It's technically equivalent to Hulu, Netflix, Disney, Paramount Plus. It's the absolute best, and I can explain why it's the absolute best place for finding full remote viewing projects, cinematically done under totally squeaky clean conditions. But I can say it's the best because it's the only. If you actually go through the internet and look for remote viewing sessions, like full projects, things that you can actually see. They don't exist. You'll find hundreds of thousands of websites mentioning remote viewing and doing, but full public projects where you can see from beginning to end, where you actually see the sessions, they do not exist. Farsightprime.com is the only place you can see them. We also have our YouTube channel, Farsight, but the large venue for everything is farsightprime.com. Our regular website is farsight.org. Farsightprime.com, you can see me behind me. That's the one up there. That's our streaming service. And farsight.org, which is a regular website, that is on the other side that you can see behind me. I do not do any of this at my university. At my university, I do applications of nonlinear mathematics. I teach statistics in a social science program, and I also teach elections and some stuff like that. In all of academia, so I do not do anything like this at the university. It's two separate realms, but I still am a tenured professor in one of the largest, most prestigious universities in the world. And I have to say that I'm the last of three. I'm the last one standing. There are hundreds of thousands of professors worldwide, hundreds of thousands. There have only been three major professors who actually studied the topic of extraterrestrial life, like the UFOs, UAPs, stuff like that. They are John Mack, the late John Mack, who died under somewhat suspicious circumstances in London. And then there is the retired professor, David M. Jacobs. They both wrote pioneering books, and I can talk about them, but they're all gone. David M. Jacobs is fully retired. John Mack doesn't he's not alive anymore. I'm the last one standing. Now, to show you how censored this type of information is, how is it possible that out of literally hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of professors worldwide that are free to talk about any topic they want, to teach courses and whatever they want, how is it possible that there is none except me, I'm the last one standing, on the entire planet that actually is interested in and publicly talks about this and has written books and articles about this? How is it possible that I'm the last and only one? So it's not possible if you people can just do what they want to do. The reality is this is heavily censored. Now, David Grush has given a number of congressional hearings, plus others, Lou Elizondo and others, both public and behind closed doors congressional hearings, with full Pentagon clearance to be able to speak about the crashed ships, the retrieval program, the non-human biologics, and everything. Now, down the hall in the Pentagon, you'll get another office that says, we don't know anything about that. There's no extraterrestrials, no UFOs, nothing. So the Pentagon is totally split. One half of it wants to have full disclosure, as is clear, because David Grush, for example, he has never testified in Congress without full permission from his office in the Pentagon to say what he did. He's never said anything that was not allowed. On the other hand, the other side of the Pentagon says, none of this is real. So the Pentagon is split. But still, you still have congressional hearings on the topics of UAPs, UFOs. How can it possibly be that I'm the last professor on the planet Earth, the last one in the whole United States, for example, that is even willing to talk about the subject? There's not a single university course on this type of subject in the entire United States or worldwide. How is that possible? Rob, how is that possible if it's not being enforced? And the reality is academics are scared to death. Now, with John Mack, when he at Harvard's a very bad place to work as an academic if you're interested in anything that's off the beaten track. At Harvard, after he came out with his first book, Abduction, he was put through an academic inquisition at Harvard. They tried to take away his tenure. Now, mind you, he was the founder of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Hospital. He was the Pulitzer Prize winning author of the biography of Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence. He was the best. I mean, you can't get any better than John Mack. And they tried to take away his tenure in an academic inquisition, and it went on for I don't know how many, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. But the point is, he actually, in a phone call I had with him, he actually asked if I knew any donors that could help pay for his legal expenses. Finally, Dershowitz wrote some article in a local Cambridge paper saying, "Hey, you're denying you're going against his rights for tenure as well as free speech." And a week later, the dean closed it and said, "John Mack can do whatever he wants." That's what ended it. No one offered to repay all of his tens of thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees to do this. But that's what happens. You speak about this, beware. David M. Jacobs was never promoted to full professor. I myself was stopped by getting to full professor. So I'm tenured, I'm associate professor, but I was never able to get to full professor. And you had to be absolutely nuts if you think this didn't have an effect. So the reality is every professor knows there's a gun against their head. You dare whisper about this topic and you're dead meat. Okay, that's the level of censorship we have from the top down. And in terms of the media, there's marshaling into the media all over the place. Now, from my particular background with regard to remote viewing, there's two things. There's remote viewing, and there's an application of remote viewing with respect to extraterrestrial life, UAPs, UFOs, and things like that. So at Farsight, we do many things with remote viewing. We have a lot of archaeological, a lot of religious projects, a lot of projects dealing with every possible mystery that you can possibly imagine. There are literally hundreds of stuff like that. And I have been criticized sometimes unfairly and stupidly by people. One of them, in fact, was a colleague of mine, Scott Lilienfeld, who worked in the Department of Psychology, saying that I didn't open myself up for the stuff that we do for scientific experimentation, which was crazy. At Farsight, for example, all of our projects, we have literally hundreds of full projects, all recorded live on video and all done squeaky clean with total verification of being blind. The remote viewers knew nothing about the project or the target when they do the remote viewing sessions where you see them describe all the same thing on a particular topic. Our everything is recorded live on video under totally blind conditions, and then after everything is done, then we record them being told what the target is for the first time, so you can see the reaction. Oh my God, are you serious? That's what it was about? So so it's totally squeaky clean, totally blind, everything. And with all of that, we have a data set. The data set is the actual verbal transcripts of everything that we've ever done. And we offer that to the public for anyone to be able to see. So in our regular website, farsight.org, in the introduction section, there's a section that's that website that you can see behind me. There's something called the Vault. And in the Vault, there are transcripts, literally every word that's spoken in every one of our projects. Now, that's a pristine data set that has never existed ever in the history of humanity. Every single people always say they had a psychic experience, they did this, they did that, they saw a UFO, whatever. But never is it done under totally clean scientific conditions, totally blind. And then every single word is part of a transcript. It's part of it's a data set. Those entire things have been put down as transcripts. They've also been formatted with statistics added and descriptive stuff to be ingestible and understood by AIs. So people can download any of our transcripts and upload them to ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, whatever, and talk about what's going on in our projects. No one can say that we don't open ourselves up for scientific stuff. When is the last time you heard anything from any scientist saying, I've discovered something new, just trust me, and they publish this thing? Here we are, complete data sets. Every single word is recorded and every word is in the transcripts and can be analyzed and can be, before the age of AI, this was not possible, but this is possible now. So this is a very unusual a new phase. And with regard to the extraterrestrial stuff that you sort of hinted towards, and I'll sort of get into that later as you ask me more questions. We have been in open contact with extraterrestrials for a very long time. There are basically two groups of extraterrestrials. There's many groups, but there's two basic elements. The two groups are what we call the good ETs and the bad ETs. Let me talk about the bad ETs first. Chaim Ashed, who is the former head of the Israeli Space Directorate for 30 years, okay? That's their version of NASA.
Mhm.
He's now a college professor. He's also a decorated general. He has stated on record that we thought he was going to get away with it by doing it in Hebrew on a Hebrew publication, but it turned out a lot of people know Hebrew, and it was immediately translated into a zillion languages. He has said on record that there are written agreements between the United States government and this group of extraterrestrials. They give tech transfer when crashed ships occur. They give tech transfer. They help the United States government do tech transfer basically for weapons research, weapons and propulsion research, in exchange for permission to operate what they call experiments, which is the underlying reason for the whole abduction phenomena, to conduct those experiments on Earth. And so one of the criteria for these, by the way, if you don't believe me that Chaim Ashed has said this, you can Google it. It's not a secret. Haim, then Eshed. So if you look at the activities of the bad ETs, they lied through their teeth. It wasn't just a few people, mostly mentally ill or people like that they would be sort of looking at, and the people wouldn't remember. It went into millions and millions and millions of people, and it's involved now in the largest human trafficking operation on the planet Earth. And it was just off the wall. But they were giving tech transfer to the United States government under Area 51 and other places, and the U.S. government was absolutely feeling we needed to have that technology. So that's where that sort of arrangement came by. They're an authoritarian group, totalitarian group. They're nasty. They're not good. The other group is called the good ETs. They're the ones who've been working with us. They don't like it when I say this, honestly, but we call them the fanatical free will group, meaning they are fanatically associated with free will. They won't do anything for anybody unless they ask them. They don't just come in and say, you're being abused and we're going to just conquer these other guys and just free you. They have to have some free will agreement that people ask for it, because the other side doesn't believe in free will. They believe in an authoritarian top-down, like a pyramid. And the leader on top has a vision and everybody else has to be aligned to that vision or else. And they use any type of torture, kidnapping, whatever, anything in order to get that to happen. The free will ETs are the opposite. It's messy. Free will is not easy. It's messy. You don't just order people to do things. If you want people to do things in a group, you have to talk with them. You have to convince them. Democracy, real democracy, is not easy. Totalitarianism is much easier. The vision at the top from the top leader, everybody else follows in line or else. Democracy is messy. So the free will ETs have been totally shut out of contact with the political elite, presidents and things like that. Military, the corporate, the media stuff, they're shut out of all that. However, they do have access to the masses in indirect ways. For example, the free will ETs are the ones that were responsible for dropping ideas into the heads of scriptwriters for the last few decades in Hollywood, for example, where the writer would wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I've got this great idea for a new episode or a new movie or a new series or something," and that's where Star Wars came out of. That's where Star Trek came out of. That's where Ghost in the Shell in Japan came out of. That's where the Matrix movies came out of. The guy and they're free will ETs, so they won't force you to actually do that. But if they give you the idea and you like it and you think it's your idea, That's where these movies came about. So the entire planetary culture has been transformed to be ready for these things. The bad ETs don't want any of that to happen, but it's a standoff. Both sides are militarily equal. They have the same weapons, that type of stuff. So it's a standoff. But the good ETs in this solar system have vastly more quantitative stuff, military stuff, ships, things like that. But they can't use it to affect Earth unless Earth humans actually are willing to, say, do this. The trouble is the bad ETs run this place as a prison. Literally, not a metaphorical prison, literally a prison. And they have all the leadership sort of locked up. So this is another story you can get into, but if this is the situation, the question is, how in the world are they good ETs planning on intervening if the bad ETs run this place like a prison? But that's why disclosure, which is in the written agreements, disclosure or mentioning or discussion about the ETs is absolutely forbidden. It's in the written agreement between the ETs and the government to make this stuff secret. It's in the written agreements. Hayim Ashed has said that point blank. It's in the agreement. Secrecy is absolutely total. There's no variation in it. And so that's what we do. that's the long and short. That's sort of a moderate version, not too long and not too short, for your question.
Well, that is awesome, and I appreciate you going into detail on both of those things, and we'll circle and bounce back to both of those subjects. But I did want to focus or go back to for a moment the fact that you made it a point to say that there aren't other academics out there that are willing to take the subject on and risk their professional aspirations in academics. And it's obviously because of the stigma. You had certain people like Mac, Dr. Mac, and then yourself, and there's a few other examples out there. I think Avi Loeb kind of fits that as well. Why do you think that is? Like, what is the? Wouldn't it be a good idea to have more academics on board to legitimize the topic to the rest of the world? Like, wouldn't that be a good idea? And is there someone purposely standing in the way of that?
That's a good question. Now, anyone who's standing in the way of that, you're not going to see. The real controllers of this planet, they don't want and they don't let you see who they actually are. The people you actually see working are people that are set up to do the jobs that those controllers want to have done. So, in terms of other professors, there's a difference. For example, when you talk about Avi Loeb and Michio Kaku now, he's recently joined the fray of talking about 3i Atlas. And Avi Loeb has been really big with regard to Oumuamua. That's really strange. For me, I don't really understand. And first of all, they come out of Harvard, and anything coming out of Harvard is very questionable because it's one of the most, in my opinion, it's one of the most repressive universities on the planet. For example, they're the ones that tried to get rid of John Mack, to pummel him, to destroy him, all for printing a book. He printed a book. That's what people do. And he had the best of if the faculty of Harvard had their way, John Mack's tenure would have been removed, and he would have been removed from the campus just because he expressed some of his ideas. So when you look at like Avi Loeb and Michio Kaku,
let's hold right there, actually, Dr. Brown. We're going to go ahead and go into our first break of the night right here. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. Guys, buckle in. It's going to be a good one. Make sure you tell a friend. We'll be back right after this break. All right, we are clear, and we're on a 5-minute break. Dr. Brown, if there's anything you need to do, now would be the time to do it. Everyone can still see and hear us, and I'm going to welcome in some of the late arrivers here. Let's see. Aussie Ange. She has the right idea, guys. Make sure you hit that like button if you can. We'd appreciate it. And subscribe. We'd appreciate that as well to YouTube and share far and wide. We'd appreciate that as we get into some deep stuff here tonight. Also, I'm pretty sure that it's going to get your questions going. So make sure that if you pose those tonight, put them in all caps so I can tag those and we will ask those at the end of the uh, interview here. Also, Aussie Ange, it's just been a long time. I just want to spend a moment. Aussie Ange, awesome Aussie Ange. Thank you so much. I just appreciate you coming. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you in a minute, and it's just great to see you here tonight. Also, Puppet Master, the Oath. Is that what that is? Okay. Appreciate you coming on in as well. Let's see who else is showing on up here. Delilah. Hey Delilah, appreciate this. She says she was waiting for this all week. Awesome. Well, it is time. Now is the time. We're going to be getting into that, and I'm sure you have some questions. So get those questions ready and post them in the chat, all caps, please. Big J, appreciate you coming on in, Big J. I know they added the numbers to the end of the YouTube names. I'll try not to say the numbers. I know that's not part of your actual YouTube handle, but appreciate you coming on in. And who else? Country Carpenter. Thanks for coming on in. Also, Andrew with the alien head emoji, spaceship emoji, and the radio emoji. That fits what we're doing here tonight. So I do appreciate you coming on in. And let's see, who else did we miss here? We missed integrationing, which I think is Corey, right? If this is Corey, let me know, saying you the man, Mr. Rob G. I appreciate you, and it's right back at you. Thanks for coming on in. Let's see. Who else? We got Athena. Athena saying hello, Athena. Thanks for coming on in. And we will be doing this, Mr. Drew Banky. We definitely need to talk about 3i Atlas. We'll be definitely talking about that here tonight. Jerry Carter saying Farsight. No, it's farsight.org and then Farsight Prime, right? Farsightprime.org.
No, .com.
.com. Okay, farsight.org, guys, and then farsightprime.com is where you can catch up on Dr. Brown and this remote viewing, which I think is awesome. Let's see who else. Who else has come on in? All right, I think we are current. Okay, Aussie Ange is. I gotta put this up because she was saying, "Wowza, Courtney Brown, what an amazing guest." Okay, I agree, and that's exactly why we have him here tonight for that reason right there. Let's see who else has come on in. Simply Coco, Simply Coco, thanks for coming on in. Every evening, everyone. Wow, great guest. It's unanimous. It's unanimous. We have a great guest sitting right here, and that's what we like to do. You guys know that conversations that move the needles. What it's all about. If you can't leave the show with more than you came in with, then what are we doing, right? That's the what we're trying to do here. Blue Cruise knows that and is tuned in, saying, "Hey, everybody, appreciate you coming on in." And let's see. All right, we have about a minute and a half left before we come back from break here. Yeah, we missed you too, Aussie Edge. We missed you too. Life happens though, and it's crazy time that we're in right now. Hey, I don't blame you for taking a break from social media because that is definitely something that I'm trying to do as well. Outside of doing the show, it's depressing at times, and I think we'll get through it just fine though. Let's see. Okay. All right, we got about 20 seconds. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. Back half of the first hour. We are back in the building with Dr. Courtney Brown, talking remote viewing, the UFO presence, the alien presence in general. Make sure you stay right here. It's going to be an awesome show. And if you miss anything, you know the routine. Hop in the archives because they don't cost anything. They're free, absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radios. We jump back in to the conversation. And Dr. Brown, you were kind of in the middle. I had prefaced this conversation with the question of like why, wouldn't academics and professors validate the conversation here? You were talking about how some of these universities, you were pointing out as well as Harvard kind of got on John Mack back in the day for having these views and kind of taking this outside of his professional realm. If you wouldn't mind continuing with that.
Sure. We were the last thing we were talking about was Avi Loeb, for example. Now he's an astronomer, former chair of his department. I mean, he's really big. He's the biggest of the big, and he's been really focusing on Oumuamua and 3i Atlas, and there may be other things like that sort of coming back in, but you really have to ask when this type of thing happens. And Michio Kaku, also from Harvard, he's now jumped in the fray with regard to 3i Atlas and stuff. So what you really have to ask is, why are these people big, especially Avi Loeb, willing to go on podcasts all over the place, including a lot of small podcasts? Normally, they stay away from this entire realm. What is his motivation for not just doing the big shows, but the small shows? Like, why is he doing this? And secondly, when he does this focus on Oumuamua and 3i Atlas, it really is a distraction, because the issue is not, are there extraterrestrials? We have congressional hearings on that. We have David Grush, we have others. You don't have congressional hearings on something that simply doesn't exist. And what we have done at Farsight, for example, is not just remote viewing. We are also the group that pioneered the way for taking video recordings of UFOs, UAPs, in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, using special equipment, using cameras that are converted to infrared and shooting at 120 frames per second. We are the ones who introduced that, how to actually do that. And we did it countless times to show people. Now, you don't need to look up at 3i Atlas or Oumuamua to make a possible suggestion that there might be technology involved. It may not just be a regular comet. There might be something else. That may be. It doesn't matter. The point is, the UFOs, the ETs, the extraterrestrials, they're here now. Now, Rob, if you don't mind me, there's a present button on this thing here. I think I'm allowed to. I can show a screen. Can I do that?
Yes, definitely. And then if you can just kind of explain what it is for the radio audience as well.
Yeah, I'm presenting now. I clicked on that and I'm going to share screen. Okay. And the screen I'm going to be sharing is
and I don't see it yet, but as soon as I see it,
I haven't clicked on the right thing. I'm actually looking at I've got really good computers. Okay, I'm going to click on share screen, and the one I'm going to do is Instagram. Perfect. All right, good. All right, now you should be seeing my Instagram page. Tell me if you're seeing that.
Yes, sir. It should be up on screen. Yes.
All right. Now, we are the ones that pioneered how to take video recordings on demand any day of UAPs. They are up there in enormous numbers, but they're all using stealth tech. Now, I'll show you a couple, but this is, for example, one where it was over the Pensacola Naval Air Base. They love air shows. Don't ask me why I don't go down there. They love air shows. But the point is, this is one that happened. These are 4 Blue Angels jets, and you see the UFO that's passing right by it?
Yes.
Now, there were literally hundreds of these things flying all over the place during the Blue Angels show. They were all invisible, totally invisible. I only got pictures of them because it was I shot an infrared, and I slowed the frame rate down to, I shot at 120 frames a second. Typically, these things, we record them flying at about 20,000 miles an hour. That's 32,000 kilometers per hour. And that's typically what happens. And so you can't even see the Titanic if it flew over your head. Now here, this is right over at 20,000 miles an hour. Here's a cylindrical UFO. Do you see it?
Yes, sir.
Do you see it passing the Delta Airlines jet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if it was flying, this is over my house. Totally invisible in regular light. You could only see it in infrared, and you could only see it. It did multiple passes, so I was able to get it. It was going all over the place. So I was able to get it clearly, and it passed right by the jet, which looks like it's standing still. Now, the individual that told us how to do this was, his name is I'll explain him in a second. He was let me say who he is first. He was the lead traffic control person at the Reagan Airport in the Washington, D.C. International Airport. The lead one. He's retired now, but he was the lead one. And he came to us with video recordings, with Excel spreadsheets, and he told us what cameras to buy, how to get them converted to infrared, and everything. Totally. We just followed his instructions, and we got, the very first time I did this, here's another one. The very first time I did this, you see this one coming? I had to position it horizontally. You can see it burrowing through the trees. It's going to come back again. The very first time I did this, shooting directly over my house, in the first 15 minutes, we captured 30 absolutely clear UFOs that were all totally invisible in real light. Now, we pioneered how to do this, and I'm going to stop sharing now and come back just on the regular screen with you. So we show how to do this, and on our regular website up here, you can see farsight.org, and the introduction section, there's a link there for making video recordings of UAPs.
Wow.
And we tell the camera how to get it converted, all the steps, what filters to use on it, how to process it afterwards in order to see it, and they pop up. I swear, the very first time I did it, there were 30 in 15 minutes. That's what we're talking about, Rob. But they're all using stealth tech, so you can't see them under normal conditions. And so you can't tell me, now it may be true, but you can't tell me that Avi Loeb, a professional astronomer who makes his living studying the skies, has never taken an infrared camera in the middle of the day and pointed it up at the sky at high frame rates. That's what they do for a living. But maybe it is true. Maybe he's only worked with telescopes in the middle of the night. Maybe that's all he's ever done. But the point is, when you are talking about Oumuamua and Three-Eye Atlas, and essentially implicitly, if not explicitly, disregarding the entire sort of UFO phenomenon, that's like crazy to me. And you can say, well, yeah, but he's looking at something that you actually see through imagery. Okay, that's fine. I just showed you how to get your imagery. And then I say, well, yeah, but it didn't come through an official source. That's even better. You be the source. Anybody can take can make these cameras, get it converted to infrared, shoot at 120 frames a second, follow the steps, and you can see it yourself. Stop believing other people. At Farsight, we always tell you, we don't ever ask you to believe us. We ask you just to watch what we do, and then we do it under totally blind conditions. We show you how it's all done. We show you actually are doing it in the process under totally squeaky clean, blind conditions, perceptual stuff, and then we actually let you decide for yourself. With regard to physical evidence, which is astronomy stuff, we show you how to make your own videos because you can't believe what official people tell you, ever. You have to have a mentality that you're from the state of Missouri. Now, the state of Missouri is the show me state. Look at any license plate for the state of Missouri. Show me. They don't trust you no matter what, no matter who you are. Show me. That's what we're like. I got my Ph.D. at Washington University in Missouri, in St. Louis. So it's this, it's the show me state. Be like that. Don't trust anybody. And when somebody says, no, don't worry about any of this stuff. It's up there in a comment very far away. It's okay. Just look. It's that way. It's like a magician, in my view. You know, they use something with one hand to distract you while they're doing something else with another hand. Why are we distracted? The UFOs are here. But more. And 3i Atlas, we can see it. Okay, we can see these ones too. And you don't have to believe my videos. I just showed you a bunch of them. You can make your own. We showed you the exact procedures for doing that. And now you're trying to convince me that Avi Loeb doesn't know about this. And maybe it's true. But I sort of say, don't believe what people tell you. Get the reference for yourself. And in terms of us, what we do, now you can sort of say, why do what we call the good ETs, why are they so encouraging? Why are they supporting us? Why do we make a difference? And why remote viewing? Why not just land in front of the White House lawn? I won't answer those questions unless you ask them, but those are good questions to ask.
You know, and I'm glad to see your perspective on the Avi Loeb thing, because when I look around the UFO subject, the community, and I just feel like everyone has a part to play. And so when I look at an Avi Loeb, I feel like, and this may just be me, I just feel like you don't step out on a ledge and propose that a comet might be something extraterrestrial unless you already have the underlying understanding that these things are present in here. So I think kind of like what Avi Loeb is doing is taking a particular lane and saying, okay, these guys are doing great at showing that the presence is here. Now I'm going to take a lane and say, okay, well, let's focus on these things coming in from the outside. So I just feel like what he's doing, if you combine it with what you're doing, then you guys together are doing something bigger than probably you each understand, right? You're playing a part in picking a lane.
Well, on the other hand, it could be different. You see, if disclosure, because of the stuff that we've been doing, is increasingly obvious that it cannot be avoided, then the best thing to do is not to try to prevent it from happening, but to let it happen in a different way. Let it happen in a way that's focusing on a comet, Oumuamua, or 3i Atlas passing this. Then it becomes more of a distraction for what's actually happening. See, what you have with Haim Eshed is a clear description that we have extraterrestrials here and that they're doing stuff here. And what we have with our work with photographic stuff, it's perfectly legitimate, it's perfectly replicable, and it's happening here, right now. And you can actually repeat it and replicate it yourself. So the issue is when you make a big stink about 3i Atlas or Oumuamua, it's just like Hale-Bopp. Let me explain what happened with Hale-Bopp. Back in the late 1990s, and I was actually got wrapped up in this, which was one of the most painful experiences I've ever gone and one of the most fortunate experiences I've ever had. Basically what happened is someone I knew personally, Chuck Schrammick, he was a amateur photographer in Houston, Texas. He was also a newscaster in Houston, Texas. He worked on the local news. And he made some pictures he made 100 pictures of some anomaly that looked like it was visible in his images of Hale-Bopp. It was a big light on the side, and he said he posted one, and on his website, and he said, "What is that?" Well, soon after he did that, this is no joke. I know I spoke with Chuck Schrammick about this personally. He got a phone call from one of the biggest named astronomers on the planet Earth. I won't mention any names, but it was a big one. And the guy was irate. Now, first of all, the first thing that Chuck said was, he didn't say this to the guy, but in his own mind, he said, "How to blankety blank did you get my phone number?" That was in the back of the days where they had corded phones. And he said he had an unlisted phone number because he was a news anchor. He was a news person. You don't have your phone number listed. How did the guy get his phone number? And the second thing is, I'm just an amateur astronomer. Why is one of the biggest names in astronomy in the whole world calling him up and irately screaming at him on the phone, "Take down that image"? Do you hear what I said, Rob? He said, "Take down that image. Get it down. We don't want it." And then he refused to do it. And the guy called back a couple of days later. Twice he called, demanding that he take down that image. Okay. Meanwhile, I was going to be on the Art Bell late night radio show, and Coast to Coast. And, we said, well, let's use this picture that Chuck Schrammick gave us, that Chuck Schrammick published, and see what's going out there. And in fact, we did have some remote viewing sessions done quickly. And it indicated just roughly that there was a portal out there. And a portal is where things come in and out. There were ships like going in and out, metal, stuff like that, in and out. We never said that there was an object following Hale-Bopp, but there was something there in the line of sight. It doesn't mean that it was near the Hale-Bopp comet, but in the line of sight, it was like a portal. Anyway, I went through that, and it was a fun show. And then there was a subsequent show afterwards involving before we get to that, somebody contacted someone that we worked with at a webmaster who we worked with at Farsight, and that person was a professor at a university who that person knew, and the person said that he was involved in photographic stuff dealing with a major astronomy place, dealing with photographs of this anomaly and Hale-Bopp. And she said, "Oh, that's interesting." And then he sent her 3 rolls of film. Now, these rolls of film 2 of them were blank, and the other one had 5 images on it. And they were images that came from an astronomer, and a telescope that was connected to a CCD, which is, it's a digital imager type of thing, the type of thing that you have on cameras all the time now. But back in those days, it was unusual. And then it gets printed onto film, because back in those days, PowerPoint presentations were done on film. So instead of printing it on paper, it got printed on film. And that's what was sent to us. And we had them developed, and we used a magnifying glass to look at them, and you could see they were razor sharp pixel lines where the CCD image stuff actually on the sensor could be seen, razor sharp. And we were just saying, that's interesting. Lo and behold, Art Bell calls me up. He calls me up and says, I think you should really come onto the show and talk about those images, because Chuck Schrammick's going through a hell of a time. He had to leave Houston because he's being harassed so much. He had to go to Florida. You got to help Chuck. You got to give him a hand. Just talk about the images. And I said to Art, we can't talk about the images because they're not ours, and we didn't use them for anything. We don't have the copyright on them. So I'm a professor at a major university. I'm very sensitive about copyright issues. We didn't own them. We didn't take them. And he said, okay, well, let's just talk about them anecdotally, just about them. And I said, okay, well, I wanted to please Art because I wanted to get on the radio show in order to be invited back and so on. So I said, okay, as long as we have an agreement that A, you will not publish them, and B, you will not mention anything about the actual person. We won't get into the actual person. You won't publish him. And we sent him a scan. It was a very crude scan of one of the pictures. And so we sent it to him. Okay, and then we had a show where the webmaster and other guests talked about the images, and they got carried away quite a bit. But nonetheless, that they were talking about that on the Art Bell show. I introduced them for 10 minutes, and then off I went, and they just talked about these images. But they were very careful not to mention the university or the person. Okay. Then about December, that happened like around November or so in 1997. And then in December, Art Bell says, and now I'm going to release this image that has been submitted by Courtney Brown at Farsight. And we said, what? What do you mean I submitted it? It was something just to like a prop to help him ask questions. It wasn't, and I didn't submit it, and he promised not to release it. We didn't own the copyright. He built that up into a big thing, and and at the end of the first, about somewhere around in the middle of the second week in January, he posted it. Within 24 hours, two of the major astronomers, one particularly, but two of the major astronomers in Hawaii complained to him that that the image was stolen from their website. And they showed it, and they sent a copy from the website and said, "See, it's the same image." And Art was holding it up on the and seeing it. Look, I actually did the same thing as well. I held up our image to the Hawaii image, and they weren't exact. They were close, but they weren't exact. Like they were taken 10 minutes apart or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, so like, Rob, do major astronomers at major universities listen to late night radio? How did they know within a blink of an eye that Art posted those things? Okay. Anyway, so then I was accused of fraud. Of actually, now mind you, we had not used those images for anything. We didn't do anything with the images. We just talked about them. And the guy that was a so-called astronomer, turned out that sent him to us in the first place, turned out that he wasn't an astronomer. He did work at a university. He was in a tech department, but he wasn't an astronomer, had nothing to do with that stuff. And then he just sent them, and they were expecting us to actually use them for something. They knew the images were going to be discredited, so they wanted us to use them for something. But we didn't do that. But what we did do is we were accused of all types of things. I was brought back on the show in January of 1998, I guess, or 7 or something, in late 1990s. And, asked all types of questions. And what Art was pushing me on so much, he was saying, name the astronomer, name who sent you those pictures. And I said, no, I can't mention anything about that because I have no proof. Oh, but they sent you in a FedEx wrap. That's enough. That's enough. That's proof. He was adamant, pushing, send the name. And I said, no. Anyway, after that, I was totally discredited. I was thrown off the radio, wasn't allowed on. One thing came out of that was really valuable. Two things, actually. But the second thing I'll tell you later. The first thing was I learned then that if you're going to do anything in this world, you have to control the mic. That's where FarsightPrime.com came from. Our whole streaming service is equivalent to Disney, Paramount Plus, Netflix in terms of technical abilities, and we knew that we had to create our own videos and we had to control the mic. Otherwise, you're at the mercy of some guy. And so then what happened after that is Art Bell started to invite some military remote viewer on his show. I tell you, look, Rob, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it gets worse than this. He started to invite him on the show, and then it became the Hale-Bopp companion that was following Hale-Bopp, and it was carrying a plant pathogen weapon that was going to, it was a UFO following the Hale-Bopp comet that was going to drop a plant pathogen weapon on Africa and wipe out all plant life in Africa.
Hold it right there. Getting into some great stuff, guys. We're going to continue the story.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
Okay, run a 5-minute break now.
All right, we are clear. And yes, 5-minute break off camera. So I'll see you back hour 2.
Great. I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'll be right back, okay?
All right. See you soon.
Great.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are in after hour number 2. We're going to go ahead and bring our guest back on stage here. Dr. Courtney Brown will be getting back to the show here in about 20 seconds here. Once again, you guys have sent a few questions over. Appreciate that. Send more over and put them in all caps, and I will go ahead and ask those at the end of this hour. Once again, all caps. I will catch them and we'll ask them last 30 minutes of the show. Here we go. Let's go. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are back in the building here with Dr. Courtney Brown, head of farsight.org, remote viewing. We're talking about a bunch of stuff here. We're getting deep in the UFO subject. Make sure if you miss any of the conversation, which has been a great one thus far, hop on the archive, absolutely free, youtube.com/@spacedoutradio. As we go ahead and get back into the conversation, Dr. Brown, you were talking about the companion craft with this Hale-Bopp comet that they said was carrying a plant-based pathogen, you were stating right before the break?
It wasn't they. It was one remote viewer guy who Art Bell seemed to like. He was a military guy. And after they completely tried to crush us, discredit us, and that's what Art Bell was really involved in that. The by accusing us of stuff, that was, anyway, ridiculous, because we had never used that image before, those images before, for anything. Then this military remote viewer guy said that this is an actual UFO that was following the Hale-Bopp comet, and Art Bell named it the Hail Mary. And then he said it was good. It was carrying a plant pathogen weapon that was going to be dropped on Africa and wipe out all plant life in Africa. And I'm sort of sensitive to anything where they pick on Africa for something. Like, why didn't they say? I mean, I lived a long time in Africa. I married in Africa. My son is African American, and then and so a lot of other people would just say, it's a distant place. We don't know anything about it. But I know a place. I grew up anyway. So the issue is that this is a plant pathogen weapon that's going to drop on Africa and wipe out all plant life. And then, to make matters worse, if you want to find the safe zones, you can buy his remote viewing kit. I think it was going for $55 or something. And Art Bell was talking all about it and promoting it and stuff like that. And I said, it doesn't get worse than that. And then I think it was the middle of March, there was a group of eunuchs. I think they were called Heaven's Gate, I think they were called. And they were eunuchs. They had cut their testicles off, Rob, for real. And then they killed themselves in a mass suicide, like Jim Jones in Guyana type of a thing, saying they were going to be beamed up to the UFO following Hale-Bopp. I mean, these people were sick puppies. But the point is that they had never emailed us. They never linked to our website, no contact with us. But they did link to Art Bell's website and everything like that. And then immediately after that, Art goes on one of the major news outlets, magazines, and says, the only person who ever said there was a UFO following Hale-Bopp was Courtney Brown. I mean, people were lying through their teeth on everything like that. But it really fundamentally, it was an act of like trying to crush us. Yeah. Well, all this time that this was happening, we actually had real contact with ETs. I have had contact with ETs, real contact, going back when I was a kid. But during this whole time, we were having regular contact, and we had an ET particular guy who we called the Gray Dude, actually was coming and giving us advice on a daily basis of what to do to get through this period. And that lasted for 1 year. At the end of 1997, it ended completely. And then we had other means of communicating with the ETs, but that time of visiting every day type of thing ended at the end of 1997. But the issue was that the military used to record all of this, military intelligence. They were following us. The conversations that we had internally were very deep. It affected them so much that one guy actually broke off from the military, resigned, submitted his papers, left, and came and told us what happened. The whole Art Bell Hale-Bopp thing. He proved to us who he was. He gave us a written transcript of a very sensitive conversation that we had with Art Bell, and with 4 people on the line. And he had a written transcript of it. Like, they were bugging our lines, and they had, if someone gave you a card, say where they were military intelligence, you wouldn't believe it, but they came with the transcript stating everything. And then the guy told us everything that happened. They were originally going to try to discredit us because the remote viewing stuff was supposed to be held within the New Age community so that the mainstream scientific community would not get anywhere close to it, because they didn't want to be touched by anybody who was doing weird stuff. But then when we had the Hale-Bopp thing with Chuck Schrammick, they changed. They pivoted and said, oh, forget the health thing. We're not going to say remote viewing is not healthy. We'll say we'll go after him on this thing. And the whole idea was to lead this to a point where the person at Farsight, the webmaster person, would say on the radio when pressed who this person was, who the person was that centered the film. But I was adamant, no, we're not going to do that. Do not mention the person's name. Do not mention the university. No, we kept to that. But they were expecting her. They had a profile on each person in Farsight. They had a profile, and they said, this person will crack under the pressure and say the name. And then that person was supposed to sue us for defamation, and that would close the institute, and that would close everything. That was the game plan. But we held to our word, and we didn't say the name, and we just took our punches. Whatever Art Bell was throwing at us, we just took. And then what happened then was they said, okay, we got enough anyway. They caused so much of a stink about this image that we didn't do anything with. We never used it for remote viewing. It didn't matter if someone tried to discredit it or not. It wasn't ours. And it caused such of a stink, and Art Bell was so good at blowing it up into this huge thing that it was where there's smoke, there must be fire. So it looked like we were discredited. Okay. And then when the eunuchs, the Heaven's Gate people, the eunuchs, they cut their balls off. When they killed themselves, that was the Intel people didn't design that. That just fell into their lap. And then another military intel person said, Courtney, I'm absolutely positive somebody got a promotion based on how great that discreditation campaign went. They said that it was something. Okay. Now, Rob, it was extremely painful when that happened to me for 2 reasons. A, it was attacking me personally, discrediting me, and I'm a Ph.D., a professor. We value our reputation more than anything. But it was also painful because I realized academics can't be trusted for anything. These major astronomers that were involved in all types of things, you know, the people who sent us the images, that person was from a university. I said, professors lie through their teeth. And then that same Intel guy said, let me explain this to you, Courtney. You see, these professors, they think they're tenured professors at major universities, but that's not how we in the Intel community, that's not how we think of them. They're our employees. You see, they apply for grants, and these telescopes that they use are hundreds of millions of dollars. They're big and they cost a fortune. And they know that if they don't do whatever we ask when we call, they won't get the next grant. They won't be able to pay their mortgage. We consider them employees. They're just our employees, even though they consider themselves. And, you know, the universities don't pay their salaries. The grants pay their salaries. So that's how that sort of works. And now I'm not saying that's how I view it. I'm saying this is how the guy described them. Okay, the Intel person that broke and came to us. Okay, and the other reason, so that was the 2 major reasons. A, it was attacking me through this Art Bell thing, but also I realized that the world isn't as rosy as I thought it was, and university professors can't be trusted for anything. That you always had to show yourself. And the third thing I learned is you have to control the mic. You have to be able to control the mic. Now, notice in all of this interview, I've never mentioned any names except Art Bell. Okay, so this is, you know, but these are the things that actually happen. Why is this just like Oumuamua and Three Eye Atlas? Because it's the same type of a thing. They have comet coming in, and what it's being done, the way Avi Loeb is talking about it, and even to some extent the way Michio Kaku has been talking about it, if the videos I've been seeing are real. I mean, you never know with deep fake videos these days, you never know. But it's like there's fear that, there's this thing flying in and it could be the mothership. And then there could be, other ships coming out and it's going on the opposite side of the sun and it's giving out more light on the opposite side of the sun than the sun itself. It looks evidence that it's technological in order and they could be swinging around, coming back to Earth. And what if they release other smaller ships coming? This is fear. How is this different from Hale-Bopp? Whipping up a huge amount of fear, a plant pathogen weapon going to drop on Africa and wipe out all life in Africa. I mean, and all life on the planet, like because of all plant life in Africa would be wiped out. And then if you really find the safe zones, by the remote viewing kit. I mean, how is it any different than that? Your fear, when in fact, it's not like the magician be distracted and look. Oumuamua and Three Eye Atlas, I don't know what they are, and there are so many extraterrestrials in the solar system. I'd be astounded if they didn't have some type of extraterrestrials stuff associated with it. But the reality is, we can give you the pictures right now. We can show you how to take your own videos. Why look out there across the solar system when you can have 30 above your house in a 15-minute spot with videos that you record today?
I understand that, and that makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate you touching on that, because the whole Art Bell thing and the incident back in 1997, which you stated was really hard for you, was something that people bring up occasionally when your name comes up. So I appreciate you taking it head on and explaining that. Now, just looking at perspective, right? Because obviously with remote viewing, I would think that you would be able to tune in to remote view Three Eye Atlas. Is that not a thing?
Yes,
able to do that?
We can do that. Oh, let me say one last thing about what we did before with Oumuamua, Three Eye Atlas, and the Hale-Bopp. The other great thing with the Hale-Bopp thing is it told me I heard a tremendous amount of understanding of how psyops work, of how discreditation campaigns work, of how efforts to actually, by the Intel community, to discredit different groups. And the Intel people explained to me very point blank, why do you think there are no major, huge UFO groups? We snuff them out just like that. If anything grows big enough that it's a threat to anything we're doing, we snuff it out. And they actually explained what the techniques are that they use for snuffing these things out. So the very fact that the Three Eye Atlas and the Oumuamua stuff is not being snuffed out, but you have major people going around and talking about it and getting major publicity about it, getting on all the major podcasts and even minor podcasts and nonstop talking about it. That to me says that's weird. Now, Rob, there's another thing. If you do a Google on us, now, if you do a Google on remote viewing, and if you do a YouTube search on remote viewing, you'll get a zillion sites, but you won't find us. Just do a test. Go to Google and do remote viewing. We are the absolute largest venue on remote viewing on the planet Earth. And there's no other place that you can get full projects with remote viewing where you actually see the remote viewing being done. You can't find sessions. You find people talking about remote viewing, but you don't actually see sessions. You don't see what it's about. We are the only place that it exists, and it's huge. You can't say we're a small group. We have a huge streaming service, farsightprime.com. Our website, it's hosted by GitHub. It's really big. And we have the transcripts of all of the stuff we've ever done. We've got more information than you can ever imagine. And we have a large YouTube channel as well. You cannot find us. We are the largest YouTube presence, for example, on the concept of remote viewing. And you can't find us on YouTube. Now, that gives you an idea. So why is it that you get some astronomers, you get some people from Harvard out there talking about this stuff, and you can find them all over the place. Yet when you do a search for remote viewing, you can't even find us, even though we're the largest and the only venue. Rob, we're the only venue where you can see full projects on remote viewing. So that it really raises real question. Whenever I see something really hitting mainstream and there's a lot of publicity, I say, you know, if the big shots, if the power elite didn't want it, they would not let it happen. Yet it's happening. So I always question that. Anyway, I'm sorry, Rob. What was your? Oh, by the way, the last thing I want to say is the reason that the Hale-Bopp thing was such a great thing that happened to me. I was so grateful. I would never want to have missed it. Is it taught me how these psyops work, how the actual intel community works. I never could have possibly imagined that, nor could you ever find a book about it that would explain it. But I learned so much, and that actually has helped me and guided me throughout all of the stuff that we actually do. Last thing I'll say is Farsight exists. We have been explaining to people how to make their own video recordings of UFOs, UAPs on demand when they want. We have the largest venue for remote viewing out there anywhere. Rob, you have to ask, why do we exist? Remember David Grush? Half of the Pentagon is supporting him and giving him permission to say everything he does at congressional hearings. Nothing is done without permission. The other half of the Pentagon denies everything. The Pentagon split. The only possible way that we exist is that a hefty portion of the Pentagon is supporting us and wants us to do this. They could snuff us out in the blink of an eye. The very fact that you're talking to me on your radio show, Rob, is the fact that somebody wants us to do that. I have to admit that they're also very intrigued by the fact that we do have lots of direct extraterrestrial contact, actual physical meetings, and they know that. They follow everything. They have told us point blank that they follow absolutely everything. That's a great curiosity for them. But the point is that we're here right now, and I don't see any other group that's been allowed to show you the type of stuff that we're showing. Rob, I pivoted from your question. Why don't you go back to your question again? So I forget what it was.
No, I appreciate you taking the head role here as far as kind of delivering the information, because I want it all to get out. This is obviously our first time getting together, so this is really what I wanted you to do. But the question I had was, and this is one of the views that I have on why disclosure has not happened yet, because I feel like, and I've said this, everyone here knows this, I've said, okay, we have experts in remote viewing, and I'll put you in that category, being that you have all the data there. We also have CE5 specialists. We also have channelers. And so I would ask the question that why can't we get those groups together to go ahead and bring in disclosure? Is there something in the way of that? Or is it because I don't see a world where we can't get you with let's say Chris Bledsoe for CE5, and then the best channeler out there, get you guys together to kind of make this thing happen and bring disclosure in. What would you say to that?
Rob, you're raising an incredibly important question. The reality is this planet is being run not as a metaphor, but as a real prison. It's being run as a prison. Now, it's not a prison with bars. It's a prison that's a psychological prison. Information is kept from the masses. The very fact that you see this shadow banning with regard to stuff dealing with Farsight, people are trying to keep it away from the public. The very issue with each one of the things you just mentioned is a separate thing, has to be discussed separately. Let's start with the channelers. The bad ETs know that the New Age community is a huge venue for attack, meaning information that gets into the New Age venue seeps into the rest of the mainstream eventually some way. So it's a very crucial thing for them to control. So this channeling community is weird. Now, how many times do you get a channel coming in and they're saying that they're channeling an extraterrestrial? Now, we've actually done remote viewing sessions under totally blind conditions, totally controlled scientifically, to see who they're actually channeling. They are actually channeling real ETs. That's not a joke. But what we have found out is that the image that you get is that there is an ET on a ship somewhere in a room, sitting down and having a conversation through this channel. Now, there's two aspects to this. First of all, If you were a major extraterrestrial group trying to control planet Earth and you wanted to seed the New Age community with information that would keep it in a box so it doesn't actually leak out, are you going to miss that opportunity? The first thing you're going to do is saying, there you get a person. It's like a person with a car. You have your car, you go out and you say, you leave the window open and the key in the car. Now, that's what a channel is. They're letting their minds open and letting an alien entity enter their body and occupy the body and speak. And suddenly, hello, how are you today? I am so grateful that everyone has been to our meeting so we can talk and share. This is wonderful. You get the idea? And so, and that we have done remote viewing on these people. These things are real. The two things that's weird is, if you were a good person and you visited and you were walking outside and you saw a car with the window open and the key in the car, what would you do? You'd say, oh my gosh, I wonder if I should call the police. This is terrible. Should I wait here to see if the person comes back? And then you just walk away and you say, I hope the person knows what they're doing. But if you were well, I don't mean to pick on teenage kids, but just for an example, if you were a teenage kid and you saw that and you say, oh, this is great. If you were a malicious person or a thief or a thug, you would jump in that car and you'd steal the car and you'd run with it. So if you're a channeler and you open yourself up and say, come in and use my body to do, who's going to do it? A bad guy or a good guy? The good guy is going to say, oh, that's weird. And they're not going to come in and try to manipulate you and do it. The bad person is never going to miss that opportunity. So what you have is you have information that's coming through these channels, so many of them, that is mixed with true information that actually is correct and sounds great, always with a wonderful personality, and false information that simply lies. For example, you often find a channel coming in talking about the grays. And the grays, and they say that the gray, and the channel says, we are actually from your future. We're future humans, and we made mistakes. And what we did is we made mistakes and we can't reproduce. So we had to come back here to our predecessors and borrow some of your genes through, situations where you gave us permission so that we can create a new species and create this hybrid species where we're able to reproduce again. And we're so grateful. And you're our parents. And this is wonderful. All right. That's a total lie. That's a total full of crap. None of that is true. The reality is the grays were originally a species on another planet distantly that was very much like us, actually a little more emotional than us, and they were conquered by an extraterrestrial species that was actually dominated by a particular species called the reptilians. The reptilians rarely fight their own battles. They have proxies. So they had proxies that worked for the reptilians that conquered that entire species and enslaved them. Everybody is an Isby, an immortal spiritual being. We do not use the word soul or spirit because of all the religious baggage that comes along with it. So we call every person an Isby. It is impossible to kill an Isby. No one can grant you eternal life because it's impossible for any person to die. Your body is just a shell. But you can trick an Isby. You can lie to an Isby, you can trap an Isby, you can enslave an Isby, you can do all types of bad things to an Isby, you just can't kill an Isby. So what happens is that these extraterrestrials, they have an understanding of the entire realm of Isbyism and stuff like that. And they make themselves sound through this communication, Isby to Isby, telepathic communication, like they're a guy on a ship just talking. That's total fraud also. But basically what happens with the people that used to be grays, they were captured, their Isbys were taken out, and they were put into new bodies that we call grays. And the reason is those gray bodies were designed so that they couldn't think in terms of emotionality the way we think of them, because they had lots of things that they wanted those grays to do that they would react to if they had emotions, like abduct people, to do genetic experiments with people, everything you hear about in the abduction community that John Mack has written about, that David M. Jacobs has written about, to do horrible things with people. Go ahead.
And hold right there. We're actually we're going right into our final break. Very interesting stuff here with Dr. Courtney Brown. We're going to talk about this and finish this up right after the break. This is where your questions will be posed. Make sure that you go ahead and put those in caps, and we'll get to them if we can. We're going to try. Right back here at Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. Appreciate you guys coming in. See you after the break. All right, we are clear, and yeah, very awesome stuff. I do want to continue that after the break because you're saying exactly the way that I've been thinking. Everybody here knows this. I've sat and I've had. I don't know if you're familiar with Reed Summers. He has a show out there called Emerging, but I've had him on a couple times, and because the
I'm sorry,
reason why
who are you talking about?
Reed Summers.
Reed Summer?
Yeah, Reed Summers. He has a YouTube channel out there called
Okay,
Emerging.
okay.
Really,
Go
really
ahead.
great.
Go ahead.
So I talked to him, and his perspective was that the extraterrestrial presence, and especially channelers, they might not be getting the correct information. And why would you trust an extraterrestrial to be giving you correct information when the idea is that you're going to be a seed to spread this out to the rest of humanity? So they're going to tell you what sounds good in hopes that you go ahead and spread that out there into humanity, and it's like a false sense of security when it comes to that message. So I'm glad you spoke to that.
exactly what happens.
Yeah, I'm glad you spoke to that. It makes total sense, and I definitely we'll pick that back up after this break. Man, time is going by fast too as well.
Yeah.
I would love to get you back in here and do a part 2 to this if you wouldn't mind.
Anytime you want, I'll be glad to come back.
Okay, that'll be great. So so guys, so don't feel bad if we don't get to all the questions tonight, because I definitely have a few other things that I want to touch here, and we'll try. With that being said, here, let's see, 3 minutes left till we come back. Let me see. Aussie Ange is putting up clap emoji saying great show thus far. We appreciate you, Aussie Ange. And he's saying Rob needs a beard. Thought I had a beard. This is a beard, I guess. Jerry Carter. So I appreciate you though. Let's see. And yes, Drew Banky, we'll make that work. We'll have to make that work, sir. We'll do like a panel show for that. But let me see. Paramar, appreciate you putting that out there in the chat here. Dr. Courtney Brown's website, farsight.org. Also, is this your channel here, Renegade Thinking?
Yeah, that's my channel that I use for my teaching at Emory.
Okay. And
I have also my own personal website, CourtneyBrown.com.
Okay.
But that's on Renegade Thinking. That's where you get my statistics scores. For example, if you want to see me teaching at Emory, that's what I do.
Okay.
I can't put that on my own stuff. Oh no, and on X it's Farsight Prime. There is a Courtney, I think, but it's Farsight Prime on X.
Okay, awesome. And also books at Amazon.com. It's a link for that here. And also IG, Instagram.
Yeah, that's great, because with that one they can actually see video recordings of the UFOs. And we give the methods for how to do it to replicate.
Awesome stuff. Man, there are certain people, and that's why I'd love to keep you in the Rolodex, because I believe I like to have conversations with people that are actually moving the needle, and I think what you're doing is exactly that. And there are other examples of that out there, and I wish we could form some sort of like Avengers team where you just bring all the best of the best that are really trying to get to the answers. I think a lot of people aren't trying to get the answers for whatever reason. They're just talking about the subject, but they're not really proposing solutions or capturing data to share with other people. There's only a handful of people doing that, which you pointed to earlier tonight. So I just always have to applaud someone that is taking time out of their life, because obviously time is the most valuable thing that you have, in order to capture data for everyone else, right? That's a selfless thing to do. So awesome stuff. Keep doing that. And I love it. And I'm sure everybody else out here loves it too. Smokes a lot. I've been a long time subscriber to Farsight. They are awesome. I'm sure the doctor appreciates that, and we appreciate you coming on in, checking them out tonight. We appreciate also if you wouldn't mind coming back. We have great shows here all the time, 7 days a week. You'll catch me on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, 7 p.m. Pacific, with the After Hours radio show. You have Cryptid Cartoons Saturdays at 2 p.m. Pacific with Dirty Filth. You have UFO Max Wednesdays at 8 p.m. with Grant Tavius Max and Lee Strauss. You have Element 115 with Lee Strauss on Fridays, 8 p.m. Pacific, and then Dave Scott Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. until midnight Pacific time, 7 days a week. There's something awesome that you'll find going on right here at Space Out Radio. So we would appreciate you coming back. That'd be an awesome thing to do. And I think we need to. This is not a conversation to be having in these small little separate pockets. We actually need to be having this together in one place. So I think it's cool to share audiences and patronize, be a patron of all these different shows. Trying to figure out a way to bring everybody to the table, but that, once again, somebody told me that was pie in the sky, but I think it can happen, and we're going to keep trying. We're coming back right now. All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are in the back half of that second hour with the super awesome guest here, Dr. Courtney Brown. We've been talking remote viewing, farsight.org. Also, just general UFO subject, just the subject in general. If you missed any of the conversation tonight, definitely hop in the archives. Free 99, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And right before I stopped you at the break, Doctor, I don't know if you remember where you were at, but I know I posed the question that why can't we get the best remote viewers like yourself with all this data and these CE5 specialists like Chris Bledsoe and then channelers all together on one stage to bring disclosure in for the world. You were talking about channelers and how they could be getting potentially a false message and essentially to spread to the rest of the world, which is dangerous in itself. So you were kind of talking about that, and I didn't know if you were going to go into the other two that I brought up there.
Well, the thing about the channelers, to sort of wrap that up, we also found out that the channelers are huge amount of time, almost most of the time. Not only are they channeling and bringing in information, true information mixed with misleading and false information, but also they're not what they say they are, meaning they come across as a single individual, like from a room in a spaceship. It's not the case. The reality is these are full Broadway productions. They have the whole unit, the whole ET structure out there is doing this completely organized. It's not one guy, and there's AIs involved, and they make sure that the person has the exact same voice and the exact same personality each time. There's many people associated with the information. It's being fed in. It's a propaganda machine that's being fed in, and it's very carefully constructed to mix with true information and bad information. Now, the ones that come through and talk about the Greys, for example, they don't want to say that their side actually conquered an entire species, enslaved in a species, and is using that species in an emotionless way to do awful things to humanity. They don't want to say that. So they come up with another thing. You're giving birth to another species, and we have found that there's actually what we call the renegade renegade Asasani, the Anasani, basically a group of Greys who are free. They're associated with the good ETs, and we call it the Asasani resistance movement, and they're actually opposed to everything that you hear about coming through from the bad ETs and the channeling community and so on, and they're actually trying to free their brothers and sisters. They're slaves. Those the Greys that you actually see on the ships that John Mack has talked about, that David M. Jacobs has talked about, they're actually slaves. And the Asasani resistance movement is actually trying to free those people. And when you're hearing the channelings come in, it's not a single person. It's a whole Broadway production with tech involved, AIs involved, and everything to make sure that the message is exactly what they want. They have millions of years of experience in how to contain psychologically a prison planet like this. And the very idea that you'd think that a whole species, that whole group of extraterrestrials would allow a single guy in a room to channel and seed information into a whole planet. What? The captain of the ship would object. Anybody would object. You can't get away with stuff like that. I mean, who in their right mind would actually think that an entire organization of ET ships would allow one guy to start transmitting information out to the whole planet. What? It's I mean, you're crazy if you think that anybody would allow that to happen. It's being done by an organized group, and it's an extensive group. So that's dealing with the channeling. So when you sort of say bring everybody together, you're just like saying you have two people on opposite sides. Rob, there is a war going on. Right now, the good ETs are trying to actually collapse the prison, completely collapse the prison, and free everybody. So you don't. The reason you're not having disclosure is because the ETs, the bad ETs, don't want the disclosure. They don't want that stuff. But when it looks like it's some aspect of it is going to happen regardless, then you do the magician stuff. Oh my gosh, look up there. It's called Oumuamua. It's called Three-Eye Atlas. Distract. And you get all that distraction going on to avoid the question of what's actually going on right here on your Earth. And it's not in dispute, Rob. If you just take our advice, take out your camera, get it converted, take your own photograph. It's not, anybody can replicate what we do. So that's like crucial. So getting it all together is very different. Now, the other thing is you can say, well, why are the ETs, the good ETs, the one that we work with, why do they actually work with us? Rob, I'm going to give you the 2-minute summary of what's been going on. This place is a prison planet going back thousands of years. It's totally controlled. And everybody is literally a prisoner. You don't get onto this planet unless you're a prisoner. And what happened is, and there's a whole bunch of different aspects to it you can ask me about, but what basically happened is before I was human, before I was here, the plan was made among the good ETs to send, this has happened a few times in history. I was supposed to come in, then my son was supposed to come in after me. And we were supposed to get things set up and build this thing called Farsight. That was the whole plan. I came first, I got things started. I had, when I was growing up, 2 ETs on the left and 2 ETs on the right. They were grays every time I slept. Now, this is not something I got through hypnosis or dream retrieval or anything. There were just 2 on my left and 2 on the right, every single night. And they were like guardians. They protected me. I would have been killed long ago if they weren't there. And that through my whole life. And then when I got to be older, I was given all types of information of what to do, how to get things going, and so on like that. I had to go through the American educational system. I had to go through the human educational system. I had to have a human mother, a human father, the whole thing. But the goal was to eventually build Farsight. So finally, getting up to more recent decades, we had to get information of how to actually do it. We have a video organization that's equivalent on a technical level to Disney, Hulu, Netflix, whatever. You think I'm a professor? I don't know how to do all that stuff. They told us what to do. They told us they told us what cameras to get, what everything to organize, and so we've had this extraterrestrial contact regularly. Against our wishes, they a few years back said we had to start video recording all of our meetings. We had to. We were. And we normally had them in very remote locations, in beaches in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, things like that. No one could find us. Secret locations. And then they said everything has to be recorded. And then they said, then now we want a board meeting where all of the remote viewers would meet, plus myself. There was basically 6 of us at Farsight now. And that they would have 2 ETs, 1 or 2 ETs come and meet with us every month, and we talk about things. And we've had that going on for quite a while now. We video record everything and we publish them all. Almost all of them are up on YouTube at Farsight's, the channel Farsight. Now, if you search on Google or YouTube for Farsight, you will find us. But search for remote viewing, which is what we do, you don't find us, which tells you we're the real thing. No one prevents you from finding something that is rubbish. They prevent you from finding something that's real that they don't want you to see. So anyway, so we have these, but if you go to our YouTube channel or if you go to farsightprime.com, everything is nicely organized, and everything is on farsightprime.com. Not everything is on YouTube, but everything is on farsightprime.com, including the meetings that I personally have. I also have a daughter who's a hybrid, and she's on the ships, and I have to go to the ships regularly, not like once in my life, but on a regular basis to be told what to do. I'm not that much of a genius. I'd love you to tell me I'm a genius for doing everything like this, but the truth is I go there and they tell me what to do. Well, my daughter's name is, she's hybrid, half gray, half my genes. Her name is Ebonique, and she's now coming to the board meetings. And the Farsight girls, they love her. They think the girls there's my son and other Farsight girls. They love her. They actually think they freak out. They freak out with some of the other ETs. Like, for example, they had two AI ETs. I mean, like ChatGPT, but they're two AI robots that were coming in, and they're just like human beings, but they came in, and they freaked the girls out in particular. And Kamaya, one of our remote viewers, looks at one of them, and they were sitting right in the board meeting, and she looks at them and says, "So you're telling me you feel my pain?" You feel my pain. And you can tell their mental flavor is different because they have like a buzz, and the way they think is like a zzz. But the telepathic mental flavor of a biological being is more like a wave. That's the best way I can sort of. Anyway, but so as soon as they walked into the room, everybody, was like, "Whoa, this is different." They felt different. But the thing is that we have these meetings, we video record them, and you can see them anytime you want. Most of them are up on Farsight's YouTube channel, Farsight, but all of them are up on farsightprime.com. And Ebonique is really great. I mean, she's my daughter. She's my go-to person when I have to go to the ships, which is quite often. And they tell me what to do. Because I think they made her with half my genes because there had to be a real close connection because they had a lot of information I had to get in. They had to get into my head all at once before I went back, and I had to remember everything. And so I think that was sort of the reasoning for that. But I'm very proud of her, and I've sat on benches in front of her. She's a social scientist, and she has a big control panel and where she uses her machines and so on. And I've sat there with her, and she proudly shows me all the different things that she does and things like that. So yeah, but she's the first ET that has come to our board meetings that all of the Farsight girls like. They like her. And anyway, but that's a whole nother story. But you see, everything is open. Unlike other things that you see out there, everything is hidden and you don't really see what's going on. The free will ETs, our side, wants you to see everything. And the reason they're doing this is because they know the disclosure thing is happening. They know, and the bad ETs also know what's going to be happening. The bad ETs would like to say, "Look out there, Three-Eye Atlas. Ooh, they could attack." But the good ETs say, "Give us a break." And the reason they don't want people later when disclosure big time really happens. They don't want anyone to say, "Why didn't you try to talk with us? If you say you're friendly, why weren't you communicating? Why weren't you showing us how the ships?" So they wanted us to be able to say, they wanted everyone to be able to say, "We've been trying. We've been trying as best we could. We built you a streaming service that has all these projects so you can find out anything. We showed you how to take video recordings of the UFOs. We showed you how to get through of all of this. We had our own board meetings where you can actually see us talking with everybody." Do you get the idea, Rob? So they don't want people to say, "If you're the good guys, why should we believe you because you've never tried to contact us?" And they'll say, "No, we've been trying forever. This is a prison planet. It's really hard to get anything into this planet, but we've been trying, and this is what we've done."
And so I have to ask, because I would hope that having these conversations that are very important to have, that there are both skeptics and non-skeptics in the audience. So I'm going to assume that a skeptic is going to want to ask you or position a question about the hybrid portion of this. So, okay, skeptic is going along saying, okay, plausible, but then they hear the hybridization part of it and they're like, wait, whoa. But then you also have stated this is information that can be found on your website. Can you go further and maybe tell those people how they could go validate that over there at the website?
Well, what exactly would you want to have
as far as like the meetings, the things that are recorded?
Well, we record them. Now, the communications with all extraterrestrials on the good side and the bad side, and this is even in the literature. Like if you look at books by David M. Jacobs or John Mack, as well as a zillion other books, all communications with extraterrestrials are done telepathically. Telepathy is the normal means of communication throughout the entire universe, let alone galaxy. That's the way people normally speak. When they're running their ships, when they're doing stuff, they don't use English. They don't move their mouth and make sounds to communicate. This is a prison planet, and communication using telepathy is repressed. Now, back in the day when they had the Soviet Union and they had cosmonauts going up into space, they did experiments with telepathy, and they found out that telepathic communication in orbit is much easier than telepathic communication on ground, on the land. If you're down here on the Earth, it's very hard. Like it's really hard to get anything through. In space, it's not so hard to do that. So, there's actually a DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, our United States government, has published a report on the Soviet findings in that with that particular finding, and that tells you that there is a psi suppression field on the entire planet to dampen down the ability for this type of communication. But in addition, we have found out that there is something called a death trap. Death traps are what everybody has heard about. You die, you see the light. The glorious light. It feels warm and inviting, and it pulls you in and you get drawn to the light. Rob, that's tech. Believe it or not, it's tech. These beings that have been running this place as a planet, they know exactly how to run it. They had millions of years to fine tune how this is done. It draws you into the light, and once you get into the light, you get hit with a bolt of electricity that's way higher voltage than a lightning bolt. You cannot kill an ISB, but you can rattle it. It loses its memory. It loses its ability to do telepathy. It loses its ability to do remote viewing. It's basically numb and empty. And then an AI comes out that looks like a person and says, you're a very important person. We've been discussing your case with the Council of Elders. You see the Council of Elders over there? Yes, we've been discussing your very important case. And we've decided that maybe it would be better if it's up to you, it's free will and everything, but if you went back, remember the arguments you used to have with your daughter and your sister and your mother and the grandmother? And remember what you used to do and how you didn't really get along with your father? We think you should go back and work on a few of these personality issues. It would be better to develop yourself to get to that higher levels of evolution. But it's up to you. It's totally up to you. Now you've lost all your memory. You've been zapped. You're numb. So everything sounds good to you, sounds good to me, and off you go, and you get recycled back in. So the ISB comes back in. That's a so-called reincarnation type of a thing. So that out-of-body or that after-death experience that you've read about so many times in near-death experiences, that's a very real thing, but it's tech, and it's not supposed to happen. In other places of the galaxy, what happens is, this is true. When you die, you don't lose your spouse. You don't lose your house. You don't lose your car. You don't lose your bank account. You don't lose anything. You just don't use that body anymore. And you can get into a new body or another body. You have your various choices, but everybody still knows you and they can still see you. On Earth, that's totally impossible. So what we have on Earth is a literal prison that's very similar to the former Soviet Union and China under Mao, where people couldn't get out of the countries. And then in this prison, people get recycled and held in. Now, the real question is, why do the bad ETs want this? Well, there's 8 billion people on the planet in physical form, and I don't know how many, let's say 40, 50 billion ISBs around the planet that are sort of captured, that can't really just go out. Death used to be a means of transportation. You die and you just say, I don't like this place, and you go and you get born in some other place, some other planet. But this is a prison planet where everybody's contained. The reality is, the bad ETs don't want the minerals. They don't care about the gold. They don't care about the lithium. They don't care about the plant life. They want the ISBs. If you're a fascist totalitarian group and you want to invade other places, you can't invade with 12 people or 10 people or 100 people or 1,000,000 people. You need billions and billions, because when you move into a place that you're conquering, you've got to move in with people. to occupy those places, you need billions of people in order to go out. You need, first of all, to fight. You need mercenaries. You need military forces. You need mercenaries. You need prostitutes to service those military people. You need tradespeople. You need all types of other people, and that's what the ETs want. They need to go out and not only conquer much of the galaxy, but also to occupy it afterwards. And in order to do that, you need billions of ISBs to do that. And it doesn't matter if some of the soldiers are killed in the process. That's just their body. They take the ISB, put them back into another body, and ship them out to fight again. That's what the goal is. And all of that is being kept from you. All of that. That is why the written agreements between the United States government and the ETs, the bad ETs, have specified that secrecy is adamant, absolutely mandatory. Chaim Eshed, former head of the Israeli Space Director, has point blank said it. Secrecy is part of those written agreements that are signed. And the reality is, if secrecy was not part of it, the entire humanity would wake up and say, what? This is bad. We don't want to be associated with that group. We want to be associated with the other group that doesn't do all that stuff. But that's what's going on right now. That's the goal. That's what's really on. So what we're involved with, what I am involved with, what Farsight and everybody at Farsight involved with is our job is to produce the video record, the video library record that answers all of the questions that everybody on the planet is going to have once disclosure actually happens. Once you find out what's really been going on, then you're going to have a billion questions. Well, who was Ra? Who was Zeus? Who was this? Who was that? What actually happened with 9/11? What actually happened with JFK? What actually happened with every UFO? What happened with Roswell? Every question that you possibly imagine is going to be asked, and what you're going to find out is what the mainstream, what the leaders have told you is a total lie. But what we're heading into right now is the crunch period. We're heading into a system where everything is starting to come down. The whole information control system is starting to collapse. And that's why Farsight is where we are right now. We're waiting for that moment.
So let me ask you this, and because we're coming up to about a couple of minutes left here, I want to know, first of all, are you able to stay for maybe 15 minutes? Because I have another I want to ask you.
Anything you want, I'm willing to do. You don't have to ask me permission. I'll do whatever you want to do.
That's why you're awesome like that, Dr. Brown. I appreciate that. But I did, because I look back on previous conversation that you had in the past, and I wanted to know, because you were sort of formulating an idea. It's about a year, two different interviews, a year ago and then a little less than a year ago. A year ago, you were talking about the potential presidential electees that were coming into play, and what it would mean for one, what it would mean for the other. I'm sure you know what I mean there. Also, that you also talked about potentially an Earth alien war. I just want to kind of get in. I just want your answer to a couple questions right after the break, because I feel like some of the things you were saying there hit. I think a few of those things you were looking at hit. And I wanted to know what was your perspective as well on the things that happened after that. Like we had the drone situation in January. We had, the who is this? Jake Barber come out, crash retrievals. We had NASA come out and say and admit essentially that there was life on Mars, which is crazy to even think NASA would ever do that. We had our government come out and show us that they are probably in an active conflict with these extraterrestrials by showing us a video where they fired a Hellfire missile on a UFO. So there's all that stuff going on, plus the political landscape, which can't really get political, but as far as all the rights being taken away, the martial law that we were experiencing. I did a show over a year ago where I talked about how thin of a line democracy is, and if there was impending imminent extraterrestrial announcement to come, would governments be willing to step across that line in order to get control before the incident comes up? So I wanted to have you answer that on the backside. I'll bring it back up again, but we're going to go into overtime with Dr. Courtney Brown because he's awesome. And we'll see you guys right back here after the break.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio. You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, we are clear and off camera for 5 minutes. So yeah, in 5. Thank you.
Yeah, Rob, I will stay around and keep on going as long as you want me.
I do appreciate it. I might bring my guy Drew Banks because I know he had a question for you too. So I'll bring him in towards the end of the questions. Okay, see you in 5.
Okay, great.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We are in after hour number 3. I'm going to end up bringing our guy, Drew Banky, in with us on this part here. Drew Banky, and welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We're in after hour number 3, going into overtime with Dr. Courtney Brown. He's agreed to stay with us for a few more minutes here, answers questions. That's going to be awesome. If you missed any of the conversation, definitely jump in the archive, absolutely free, youtube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. As we go ahead and get back into the show, questions are coming up now. And let me just start it off with the question I had before the break. So just to go back on that, you were talking last year. I saw a show you were on, Doctor, and you were talking about the upcoming presidential election hadn't taken place at that time. And you were talking about the outlook if one particular person was chosen over the other. And we don't take sides. We don't care political stuff, what side you're on. But I thought you had a very interesting perspective at that time. And then now, since things have played out, and some of the things that you had said at the time are lining up with things that are happening now. And I think it's very important to bring back up. Also, there was I saw you on an interview where you were talking about the drones that had just shown up recently, and you were making some points about those. If you wouldn't mind going into each of those subjects, please.
Sure. Let's start with the drones. In our ET board meeting that we had on November 13th, 2024, we had 2 ETs there, and we had all 6 of us at Farsight there. And they told us point blank that they were going to start putting out massive drones, numbers of drones. They didn't call them drones. They don't like the word drones. But they were going to have massive numbers of ships. And we were to tell our audience to go out and take video recordings of them. It will not need special equipment like what we use with infrared and high frame rates. Any camera will do, including a cell phone, and everybody will be able to see us just to go out and do it and they're going to do it. It'll be worldwide. That was on November 13th. I was very worried about publishing that because it's like you make a forecast and if it doesn't happen, whatever, but they told us to do it and we've been doing whatever they tell us to do, so we did it. On November 15th, 2 days later, it took us a while to get it out because there's 6 mics involved and different video streams. And anyway, 2 days later, November 15th, we published it. On November 18th, the world exploded with drones all over the place. They were everywhere. The United States government was caught totally flat-footed on that. The prediction was totally accurate that we gave. The United States government, for the longest time, for weeks said they don't know what they are. Finally, I have trouble saying this without laughing. I'll try my best. Finally, they had a congressman told by the Pentagon that it was an Iranian mothership. I'm sorry, but an Iranian mothership that was using Chinese tech and so on. That was off the coast of New Jersey launching these things. Well, that lasted for 2 hours, literally. And then the Pentagon spokesperson came out and took the whole thing back. A couple weeks later, they said it was a Chinese mothership. And that actually got some traction. And that actually got onto the Sean Ryan podcast, and they talked about it. Anyway, but they pulled that eventually too. And then President Trump said, I've asked the people, and what it is they were experimental aircraft that were approved by the FAA. End of story. And then in January, the entire story, as soon as he said that, the very instant he said that, the whole story went off the news. And so from mid-November all the way through the first week or 2 of January, there were drones everywhere. But they weren't drones. They were actually spaceships. They didn't have a heat signature, and they didn't have a transponder. Anything larger than a really small DJI drone, by law, must have a transponder. And additionally, the media was making it sound like this were things over New Jersey, over the East Coast and stuff. They were worldwide. They were appearing all over the place, and that was suppressed as well. Anyway, and then in a later ET board meeting, I think it was in February, they said, the reason we did this was to demonstrate to you how much control the prison planet has. Everyone always says, why don't you just show up with the ships, land in front of the White House? We wanted to show you that even if we showed up with tens of thousands of ships, it would make no difference. They could control the narrative because the information control system is complete. People will believe anything. Now, first of all, the president's statement that these were FAA experimental aircraft approved by the FAA, that's crazy. FAA has no jurisdiction on other countries, and these things were appearing all over the place in Australia, Africa, all over Europe, and Britain had a zillion of them. They couldn't be FAA approved. Also, they had no transponder. Anything larger than a DJI small drone must have a transponder, and these were minimally the size of a car. So they didn't have transponders, and they didn't have a heat signature. Rob, they did not have a heat signature, meaning they didn't register as in terms of heat. So, and then the ETs told us, and it's on record and the video recording. The reason they did this was to show us that it's not because you can't see the ships. We showed you this ship. We showed you that it didn't make any difference whatsoever. So then they started to explain more and more and more about what's actually going on. The only way to get real disclosure is to completely collapse the information control system. Now, one of the things that the information control system does is the bad ETs schedule over periods of decades crises that humanity has to go through. Every time you finish one war, something else breaks open. Every time the congressional hearings start on UFOs, you'll see something happen internationally that'll divert attention. So you're having one crisis after the next, and they're supposed to be strung out over a period of decades. So what the good ETs did, they didn't create the crises, but they were able to take all of the crises and collapse them down into a very short period of time. Rob, that's now. Like 2025, 2026, things like that. Now. And so what you're seeing is all of these crises that were not designed by the good ETs, they were designed by the bad ETs, but they're crushed into time so that they all happen at the same time. So what you're having is Europe's war is going to spill out. It's going to, it's not going to be just beating up Ukraine. The Middle East stuff, it looks like it's going to be exploding badly. It looks like we're going to be attacking. It looks like Iran is going to be attacked by Israel again. Israel cannot survive without the assistance of the United States. Iran has tens of thousands of missiles that would completely overwhelm the Iron Dome of Israel. So the United States is going to have to become involved in defending Israel when that happens. But Israel also knows that it's not going to have any peace with Hamas or Hezbollah unless Iran is broken up. So this is an existential moment for both Iran and for Israel. Both of them know that they cannot both survive. Both of them know it's going to be a fight to the death. Israel wants to break up Iran, and Iran wants to get rid of Israel. So the next major confrontation is going to be a major confrontation. The only reason the Iranians stopped at the end of the 12-day war, the last war that just happened, was because the United States was going to intervene, and the Iranians didn't want to get into a head-to-head battle with the United States. So they ended the war. But the reality was Israel's Iron Dome was depleted, and the missiles coming from Iran were just pounding the heck out of Tel Aviv and other places, and they had thousands of more missiles to go. So that was it. But the only way Iran could have continued, though, is to directly confront the United States, and they didn't want to do that. So that shows you some of the political stuff. We have actually, and that's just from the ET side, so it was telling us about all these different things. In addition, the U.S. economy is going to be collapsing. That's not a secret, but we've been telling and explaining people about that for a very long time. But now everybody can see it. The debt is totally uncontrollable, and the dollar is just not worth anything these days, and it's going to completely collapse. So the U.S. economy is actually going to be starting to go into serious shock. All these things are going to be collapsing at the same time. It's going to get to the point, this is what the ETs have told us, it's going to get to the point, and it's all backed up by our own remote viewing stuff, that we actually see these things. It's going to get to the point where the infrastructure, the elite infrastructure, the control system won't be able to control the narrative anymore. And that will finally break people away from the hypnotic trance they have onto their cell phones and TVs, where they're waiting for the president or the elites or somebody, a television anchor, to tell them what's going to happen next and what's going on. When that completely collapses and people are broken away from that hypnotic trance, they'll start looking around them at real people, like their neighbors, like their friends, their families, and things like that, and say, what the heck is going on? And at that point, the good ETs can come in with bigger ships and say, we'd like to help, but you have to want us to help. Like, if you'd like us to help, we can. At that point, they can actually, the good ETs can get to people. They have they have more military and other resources in the solar system than the bad ETs, but they're free will fanatics. You have to ask them, or they won't do anything. So the issue is that once we get full disclosure, we're expecting people to say, well, what's happened over the last few thousand years? The Farsight library is there. It can fill in all those blanks. And then we're expecting the people to say, sure, we'd like help. And at that point, the good ETs and the bad ETs are going to be face to face. And the bad ETs know at that point that they won't be able to control the planet anymore because their tools for controlling the planet are psychological. They're not physical. They're not like bars and cement. And if the bad ETs can't control the planet anymore, and they're facing a military force from the good ETs that's actually superior to theirs in terms of numbers, they all have the same weapons, then the bad ETs are facing a decision. If they fight it out, they're fighting for a planet they can't control anymore. And if they do fight it out with the good ETs, then they're going to lose a lot of ships and personnel. The theory is that the bad ETs will then withdraw. And then we can start the process of reclaiming the planet. It's educating everybody to what's really been going on, and the place can actually become free again. So that's it from that sort of the ET side. But you asked about the political side as well. So this blends into all of our remote viewing projects. We have remote viewing projects on all of these things that are not guided by the ETs, but are guided by just our own interests. And that's where all these mysteries come about. So the ET board meetings that we have and other meetings that we have, that's sort of separate from. They help guide us to do the stuff we do. But in terms of the stuff we do, you were asking about the series that we call the Deep News. And the Deep News series is where we actually talk about the presidential stuff. We explained. We have stuff on every possible aspect of the presidential race that was going on, and all the other political stuff. We have a series on the wars that are breaking on now. We have situations where we go into the mind of Putin. We go into the mind of Donald Trump. We go into the mind of all the various leaders. We explain all the stuff that is going to happen, and we tell people what's going to happen in advance of it happening. Now, Rob, what good is a regular news show? They're telling you something that already happened. What? Isn't it better to know what's going to happen rather than to tell you what already did happen? So if you know what's going to happen and then you see it happen, you not only understand it when it happens, but you saw a sort of a blow by blow before it actually happens. We completely described the war with Gaza. We completely described the war Ukraine. We completely described the war with Hezbollah. We described the war going on with Israel and Iran, plus the stuff that's upcoming between Israel and Iran, all in advance. And to be quite honest, our accuracy rate is way higher than the accuracy rate that you get from mainstream news that reports stuff and they lie about it. So our accuracy rate is extremely, extremely high. Moreover, if you don't believe me, that's fine. The transcripts and the dates for everything that we've ever done is up on the vault at farsight.org. You can download it, upload it to your favorite AI and say, can you evaluate it? And it can talk, and you can talk about it. It doesn't get better than that, Rob.
That is fact, and I appreciate that. And I definitely want to make sure that Drew gets, I know you had a couple questions, Drew. Go ahead and spit your questions, man.
No, I was been listening to the interview in the back and just fascinated with a lot of the information you've been talking about and definitely vibing with a lot of it. But what does your guides or your ETs that you're speaking with, what do they talk about? Do they mention anything about native prophecies for one? And have you ever heard anything about an eagle dream prophecy in specific, like a Lakota area, like a Lakota prophecy?
Yeah, what was the word that you first said? Did they ever talk about what kind of prophecies?
Native American prophecies, because
yeah.
I mean, it's very clear that there's several prophecies that are playing out right now, but there's also some very private ones that are not spoke about in the public very often that are unfolding right now. And I happen to have very intimate knowledge of at least one that's unfolding right now. So
Well, of the type that you're talking about, we do go into all of a huge number of things like that. My son, he's sort of a remote viewing version of Graham Hancock. He's got a degree in anthropology from Emory University. He's got a master's in international relations, and he's really deep into archaeology, and he picks a lot of our projects that go into these ancient mysteries, ancient things of ancient peoples and things like that. So we have a lot of projects dealing with things of the type you're talking about. But to specifically mention some of the things, you mentioned the Lacerda. Now, she is a reptilian female, actually a leader in her group. All reptilians are not the same. They most of the reptilians that are involved anywhere near the Earth sphere are very, very hostile, but all of them are not the same. There's lots of reptilian groups out there in the galaxy that are quite benign and quite okay. And Lacerda is on that side of things. She gets along with the other groups, but she has to be careful. The other group is like a mad dog. They can come down on her as well. But anyway, she had the Lacerda files. That was done. That was where she basically fed information into a human and gave a lot of information about what happened. We have done some remote viewing projects on the information that was actually said in the Lacerda files. And so far, we have not found anything that diverges from the Lacerda files, including remote viewing, all done under totally blind conditions, where the remote viewers are told nothing about the project, nothing about the target, and they're not communicating with each other. And individually, they all describe the same thing, and they all describe Lacerda, a large reptilian lady, talking to this human guy, just the way it's described in the Lacerda files. So that as far as we can see, the Lacerda file thing actually happened. Another one that's sort of related to, and as far as we can find out, the topics that she talks about seem to be accurate. So, and we've investigated a few of them, and they do seem to have happened just exactly the way she said they happened. Another one that's sort of interesting is Earl. That's AIRL, and Earl is a female gray who was one of the crashed beings that survived the Roswell crash. And she's and you can see her in the book called Alien Interview, that's edited by let me see, do I have it behind me? I might have it behind me. Alien Interview. Oh, there it is. Hold on. Here it's edited by Lawrence Spencer. Okay. And we have found, now she was actually a crash victim that survived, and she actually was talking with a person who the Navy found, or actually the military found, to be able to communicate telepathically. Her intuitive skills were pretty good. And so they brought her in to communicate with this gray in the crash ship. And the gray was a female, and it was named Earl, AIRL. And that resulted in a bunch of notes, and there was a mess up in the military, and the nurse who was doing all of the communications was able to leave the military eventually with a copy of the notes. The copy of the notes actually ended up with Lawrence Spencer, who published them. And we have done lots of remote viewing on that. And it turns out that Earl actually did exist. And we've investigated a whole bunch of stuff that she wrote about. She also talked in detail about the death traps. And when we went to investigate the death traps, the light, after you die, when you see the light and you're drawn into the light, it matched exactly what she talked about, exactly what she said. And so, and the idea that this being a prison planet, she was one who sort of raised that. So I can only say, Drew, that your question is great. I don't know of any particular Native American stuff that you're thinking about, but I can give examples of Native American stuff that we've done, or actually not Native American stuff, but just stuff that was of that genre, of that ilk, throughout the United States, what we now know as the United States, Mexico, Central America, and South America. There, that whole body of people, Aztec, Maya, Inca, the whole realm. And we have found a tremendous amount of stuff dealing with that. And we have a lot of projects dealing with it. And these civilizations often have ruins. And we have gone to those ruins and done remote viewing on those ruins when they were in their prime. And it's really great because you have a lot of verifiable stuff. You have the ruins, which actually show you what the cities used to look like. And so you can actually see the remote viewers describing the cities when they're in their prime. And of course, you can imagine what the cities used to look like because you see the template of the city with the ruins. You see everything that's supposed to be there. So when the remote viewers describe it as a living thing, and it looks exactly like what you see on the ruins, except, not ruined, it's very persuasive. So yeah, we've done a lot of that. We have over 100 of those mystery projects. So
Sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
was so there's so a lot of audience knows I have deep connections to a lot of American Native American elders and chiefs, medicine people. So there's been a lot of talk lately about Native American prophecy. This prophecy that's unfolding, a particular is the Eagle Dream prophecy, and has connections back to their prophecy has connections back to Egypt. So part of this whole prophecy that's unfolds within someone, it's a series of dreams that's unfold. Particularly myself, I'm speaking about myself being kind of in the middle of this crazy situation of this prophecy, but it's a series of dreams that's not only connected with Native American practices and ceremony, but actually having channelings and connections and dreams and memories back to Egypt. So this is something that's not very well talked about very often. It's my first time speaking about publicly. But this connection between Lakota cosmic knowledge and connections to Egypt is a very real thing, which surprised me, but it's something I recently learned. So
Yeah, talking about Egypt, you mentioned Egypt, things going back to one of our early projects that was done with two really great remote viewers, Daz Smith and Dick Elgar. We had a project called the Great Pyramid of Giza. That's the big pyramid of the Giza on the Giza Plateau, and how it was actually built, how it was actually constructed. The remote viewing is really astounding. Now, you have to understand that the remote viewers were not told what the target was. They were not told the nature of the project or anything about it. They just were told there was a project, do it. Describe whatever the target is. They were not told what it is. So they did everything under totally blind conditions. So what they ended up describing was the Great Pyramid of Giza and all the other pyramids that are right by it. And you can say, okay, this is all esoteric stuff. There's nothing verifiable in this. And I say, what are you, crazy? The very Great Pyramids are huge. They had to describe the actual pyramids in the desert with camels running around. It's unambiguous what the Great Pyramids look like. They look like pyramids, and they had to describe that under totally blind conditions, both of them equally with perfect sketches, and they did. What do you mean there's nothing verifiable? So this is the type of stuff we've done, and we've done stuff with the pyramids.
All right. And I'm going to get you to hold right there as we get ready to go into the final break right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. I promise, guys, I'm going to get your questions and I'm going to ask them right now. I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. All right, and we are clear. And I might as well start asking some of these questions to you right now. Let's see. I know the first one that came up.
Rob, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
For how many years have we been talking about this is the time, this is the age of show me? Like, if you got abilities, if you got some special knowledge, like the imposter syndrome needs to die and you need to share it. Like, so I love this guest and I commend you for everything you're doing, man. Like I've been preaching this and screaming it for a long time. Like, this is the time for people to show their abilities, their knowledge, share it, because we're all putting this puzzle together. So thank you for your work.
I thank you, Drew. It's really great. I've gone back. We started this in the 1990s, so I had a very best-selling book called Cosmic Voyage. You can still find it on my personal website, a free copy of it called Cosmic Voyage. And my personal website is CourtneyBrown.com. And that's how that's how it all started. And then, everything else is what you see.
Well,
there's somebody. Yeah, somebody. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yes,
No,
sorry for interrupting, man. I just wanted to say that real quick.
you're good. You're good. Let me jump into this question real quick. Dr. Courtney, this is Aussie Ange asking is, would you say the ships are more holographic to our eyes till they decide to manifest in the 3D?
No, that's all channeled garbage. That's all stuff that comes through the channeled garbage. That stuff like they're real solid ships. They're made of metal. And if you don't believe me, make a photocopy of them, video record them yourselves. We show you exactly how to record them. They're metal. They're just like anything else. And they have cloaking tech. So when you're talking about holographic to our eyes, that's all junk stuff that the channeling community has been pumping out in order to make it seem like they're spiritual, they're this, they're that, or the other thing. They're just regular metal ships, and they have cloaking technology to hide them so you can't see them, because they're running this place as a prison and they don't want you to see them. That's all that's going on.
All right. And then Roger Murray, Dr. Courtney Brown question, can you remote view 3i Atlas? Is it possible alien spacecraft or just a rock? What is your opinion?
What's different between us and what you see other people do out there that just come out to say they remote viewed XYZ is we're a science shop. We actually do things officially the way they have to be done. And it takes us a couple months to do anything. We have to come up with a target, and no one gets to see the target except the tasker who's writing it up. And then the remote viewers in a month have to do and these are professional remote viewers who earn their living doing this. You can't work 9 to 5, 6 days a week at Walmart and come home and do this as a hobby. You have to be deeply able to do this stuff, doing the procedures that we do exactly. And this takes at least 2 months for us to actually come up with the target and then get the remote viewing done. And then we have a backlog of stuff that we actually publish. So it may be a couple months after that before we actually publish this stuff. So, when people sort of say something's of interest right now, give us remote viewing stuff on it right now, that's not easy for us to do. We tried to do that back in the old days with the Art Bell show once, and that sort of got us into a lot of trouble because we were so easily manipulated by devils. I'm sorry, but Art Bell and I did not get along. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, it's okay, and I can sense that from the earlier story. But
I got that vibe. I got that.
We got Pura Marv asking, were you able to raise your hybrid daughter, or was she raised on the ship like so many other hybrids?
Oh no, I have to say something about this. Now, Rob, I don't want you to think badly of me.
No,
but I do not consider myself a deadbeat dad, but I did not send any child support payments at all. She was a test tube baby. She was raised on the ships. I visited many times, but I don't consider it a deadbeat dad, but I do confess to you, I sent no child support payments.
That's awesome. That is awesome and hilarious. So here we have about 20 seconds left before we come back from radio. I have 2 more questions from the audience. I'll ask you those. And I have 1 question for you that I'll ask to get you out of here. Because I appreciate and value your time, and you've been awesome this whole show. So with that being said, guys, we're coming back here in 10 seconds. Let's get ready to go. Make sure you share the show too. Here we go. All right, welcome back. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. We're on the back half of hour 3. And guess what? Dr. Courtney Brown is still with us. Awesome as he is. Appreciating this time. We're going to go ahead and get to a couple audience questions. Then we'll get them out of here so we get into some After Hours wrap-up, into some UFO and weird news. So make sure you guys don't go anywhere. Been a great show. Is going to continue to be that right here on Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. So we have a couple questions left here. We asked some on break, but we had a question from NPZ2N saying, I have a question. Is it just the very thought of it that makes it real? Like as far as you can picture it in your mind, kind of like daydreaming? I've done it before, but is there one key thing that you can give us?
Yeah, I can say a couple things, both with respect to your exact question and also with respect to dreaming. So with respect to what your question is, actually, everybody has an ISB, and ISB is distributed across all of time and space. You don't actually go someplace when you're remote viewing. You're actually shifting your awareness to someplace. And you can actually find, if there's more than one remote viewer at a place, you actually can end up locating and bumping into that remote viewer, remote viewing the same target. So it's like everything that you can think of in some way, shape, or form exists in some way, shape, or form. Now, physicists used to upset about this a lot. In fact, the very idea that you can remote view means you're perceiving something across time and space. And physicists don't like this at all, because not all physicists are upset with this, but about 80% of them are upset with this. And the reason is that according to classical physics, there's only one physical reality. It's just what you see in front of us right now. And that is ultimately tied to the common experience when you open your eyes and you see a physical reality. And it's also tied to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics, which basically says in the quantum micro realm, everything exists as a potential. And then when it's observed in some way, shape, or form, or registered in a photographic plate or somehow connected, if you observe it, it pulls itself out of the probabilistic ethers and becomes real. So there's only one reality. It was Hugh Everett in 1957 who got his Ph.D. studying under John Wheeler in Princeton, who said, that's a monstrosity. That's a crazy thing. You can't just say that. So he said, and so he was the one who came up with the idea of the other worlds interpretation, that there are many realities all at once. And what basically happens is, it's like the radio. When you're listening to the radio, there are many stations broadcasting, but you're not hearing them all at once. You're tuning into one station on the radio, and you hear that one station. Well, reality is like that. You have a physical universe that is actually not really physical. What it is, it's an energy universe, and it's all based on energy with waves. And when waves get coordinated in such a way through processes known as constructive and destructive interference, you have something called a superposition form, and you get a reality that appears to everything that's in frequency sync. So when your radio is in frequency sync with the radio station's frequency, you suddenly can hear the radio. When your television is in sync with the television frequency, you can see the picture on the screen. But there are other frequencies that are carrying zillions of other radio stations and television stations. Well, that's the way physical reality is. So what you're actually seeing is a physical representation of energy waves that are sort of intermixing. And what that basically says is that you can have an infinite number of realities all intermixing with themselves. Now, mainstream physicists, the older ones normally, they didn't like this, because with one physical universe, you can't have two things occupy the same space. You can't have multiple realities because you can't have two versions of the moon, because where would they work? How would they live? Then the one would crash into the other. You can't have, and an infinite number of moons, that makes crazy. And Einstein used to laugh at and mock his quantum mechanical colleagues by saying things like Princeton saying, so you're telling me that if the moon won't exist, it'll go away if I don't look at it? But in some way, shape, or form, through a various means, very complicated means of perception or recognition or measuring or observation, in some way, shape, or form, it can be technological, it can be indirect, direct, whatever. Everything exists when you're in a state of superposition with everything that's there. So what you actually have is a situation where all the past, many, many infinite numbers of different pasts, and all the presents, infinite number of presents, and all the futures, infinite number of futures, all simultaneously exist. So navigating through all of that stuff is easy when you're going into the past, because your memory stream has a memory through books you've read of a certain set of things happening. So you make a mental image of what it is that you want to have remote viewed, and you assign that to a remote viewer, and that without it even being told what the target is, they can perceive that and describe it perfectly. Describing into the future is more difficult because it hasn't happened yet, so you don't have a clear picture of what's actually going on. So you have to make a probabilistic bet on what you are expecting to see based on the energies that are momentum at the moment moving forward. So remote viewing the future is a little bit more challenging than remote viewing the past. But when you're actually thinking something, your thoughts actually determine that are actually seeing something. So in some way, shape, or form, anything you can think of actually does exist in some crazy reality out there. In terms of your dreams, things are a little bit more complicated, because when you dream, you actually disconnect from your physical body and you're out of it. And you are like you were before you were born. Now, your ISB is much bigger, much bigger than the stuff in your brain. The brain is an electrochemical computer. That's all it is. And that's why if you take drugs, alcohol, if you impair it in any way, you're damaging your computer. So we always say, our advice is don't have any drugs whatsoever. I advise people against weed, marijuana, anything, alcohol. I completely it's like throwing a monkey wrench into the only computer you have. It's like putting a voltage jolt into the computer you're trying to do your stuff on. It's not good for that. And people get so upset because they're so locked into it. But the marijuana that they're smoking actually has lots of bad stuff in it that are pollutants, that are chemicals, they're doing heavy investigations now. A lot of it comes out of Maine, a lot of it comes out of California, a lot of it comes out of Maine, but they lace those stuff with all types of pesticides and other types of chemicals. It's bad for you. And I'm not in favor of I'm not in favor of making marijuana illegal by any means, but I do advise people don't do anything to the brain that damages it in any way, shape, or form, and especially smoking a blunt after a long day's work. Because if you smoke a blunt after a long day's work and you see everything that's going on in the world, you're going to chill out and you're just going to be okay. But you should be rioting in the streets. You should be really upset with the stuff that's going on. You shouldn't be anesthetizing yourself. You should be alert and awake. So the physical brain is just a computer, and you don't want to mess with it. The ISB, when you get out of it at night, when you're dreaming, that's your normal self. That's who you are. The ISB knows that and is trying to say, what can I do to give myself a little bit of idea of what's going on, what I should do when I wake up? Because I'm going to re-enter that brain, and so it comes up with a story. And that story, you then wake up and you remember the dream. If you're lucky, you can write it down and then study it afterwards. If you're not lucky, you just have a general feeling that something happened. So the dream is your ISB trying to communicate with you when the consciousness is focused through a very minimal capability biological computer called the brain. So the dreams are very valuable to analyze. I, in fact, have been writing down every one of my dreams that I can possibly. Sometimes I'm so sleepy I can't read my handwriting, but and normally I write down all my dreams since 2010. And often what I do every 5 years or so, actually recently, I've been taking my dreams from 2010 all the way to 2025 and putting them in my AI like ChatGPT and say, analyze these for me. What's been going on? And the AI always says, this is an amazing data set, and goes through all the dreams and analyzes it and breaks it into major segments for every 5 years and tells me all stuff going on. And it's very useful. It's useful for stuff like that. But, anyway, so dreams are really valuable and thoughts are very valuable. That's a longer answer to your question. I think you weren't expecting such a long answer, but you have to remember I'm a professor. I make my living by talking.
And you do a great job of doing that as well. So essentially what we'll do here is I just want you to let everybody know where they can find you. And the last question ties into that information. It was, where can one learn to remote view?
Oh,
So
that's easy.
That right along with your contact information.
I'll tell you, first of all, there are people at Farsight who independently teach remote viewing, and they can do that. And we tell people how to do that. But the easiest way is just to go to farsightprime.com. And in farsightprime.com, we have a complete a large collection of library of video of things to explain. My son Aziz, he produced a video dealing with remote viewing, the advanced procedures that we have, and we have also a complete library of video recordings for, like, there's a 24 lesson compilation of the whole stuff for sort of what we call basic SRV, and tell you something that's coming into the future. We already have the transcripts of all of our lessons up that on farsight.org that can be ingested by your AI. So it's coming to the point where your AI will be able to teach you remote viewing by simply uploading the transcripts and say, teach me this whole thing, and have your AI sort of teach you and actually guide you through sessions. But right now you can actually watch the videos, and the videos are structured to also teach you remote viewing. So you're actually listening to it and you're doing the procedures that I'm the teacher in that, and I am telling you what to do, and you're doing all those things. And at the very end of the video, you're told what the target is. It's very popular. A lot of people listen to those instructional stuff. So where can you learn how to remote view? Well, instantly you just go to farsightprime.com, go to the instruction section and start, and it's there, and you just go through the whole thing. I will give you, my son asked me not to mention this, but it's sort of hard not to mention. I'll mention it for the first time. He's got a book coming out, and it'll be available. It's actually, some of it's already available on Amazon, but he's still working through a few things, but logistically. But the book itself my son's name is Aziz Brown, and he's coming out with a book. We're going to be heavily promoting the book and telling people about it, but it's the first book on how to do the Farsight version of advanced SRV, advanced scientific remote viewing, that's been done ever. And it's a book that you can sort of just go through all the steps. So learning remote viewing is a big deal, but it's available. The whole video library is available now, and there's more coming. And we are expecting the AIs to all transform themselves in the near future into having avatars and to be able to talk and listen. So the idea of talking to the AIs, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, things like that, Claude, that we're expecting that to go away. And what will happen is everybody will be speaking with a mic and hearing over the speakers, and you'll be talking to the AI, and there'll be an avatar that you'll be looking at. So your AI will have a face rather than just words that are printed on the screen. So the entire library that we put up already for the transcripts that's already up on farsight.org is basically structured so that the AIs can take that library that's available now at farsightprime.com and be your teacher and actually lead you through those sessions. And actually, you actually will have a physical teacher for you right in front of you going through that stuff. But you get the same thing right now with listening to the videos. But sometimes people, especially young people, Gen Z, they like talking to their avatar on the screen and actually seeing the avatar move the lips and things like that. So we made this future proof so that it can actually, and there'll be more stuff we're doing. But hey, we have remote viewing instructors that actually work on their own. Intisam, Shantae, Yame Shanae, they teach remote viewing all the time, and they have students. And at the end of almost all of our videos, we have the contact forms for them. And also on farsight.org, there's an SRV section at the top. And if you click on that, you see all the educational resources. We have tons of educational resources, printed resources, video resources, everything that you can possibly imagine. And the full video library of how to do it is on farsightprime.com.
That is awesome stuff, Dr. Courtney Brown. You have been awesome. I couldn't have asked for anything better on this first interview. I can't wait for the second time we talk. It's just going to be this. I always like this groundwork to be laid, and you've done it in such a great fashion that I know the second conversation is going to be crazy. So we'll go ahead and talk offline and get that book. Outside of that, I appreciate you coming in, Drew Banky. Did you want to leave the doctor with something here? You're muted.
Amazing interview. And yeah, can't wait for the second one to see where it goes from there. So,
all right, Dr. Brown, thank you so much for spending your time with us. We're going to wrap this show up, and everybody share this show. I think it was the doctor gave a lot of great information, and I think this is one of those shows that you have to share. So outside of that, have a great rest of your night, doctor, and I will be contacting you shortly.
Take care, everybody.
Yes, sir. Take care. Guys, that is the doctor, Drew Banky. How did you feel about it? After hours wrap up, sir. We'll give a quick little to do.
He got deep on a lot of things. That it was hard to follow him once we started talking about the meetings and all that. But his his general viewpoint of consciousness, you could definitely feel it through all that. All that being said, like, I've had some things that happen to me that's hard for people to believe. So, whenever I hear something that is outside of my comfort zone or something, I'm open to it because, everybody has amazing things happen to them. And, the most frustrating thing to do is to tell your story and people, not believe it. And you're really, trying to just share the information. So he's doing a lot of good work. I feel it. And, obviously I don't believe in the whole good and bad thing. I believe it's all positive. I believe there's a threshold that you have to go through consciously, as far as a positive consciousness to travel interstellar and be able to experience all these things at that level. So, but yeah, I mean, it's everybody has their thing, and he's got. I checked out his channel when I was listening to the interview. He's got like over 100. I think it's over 100,000 people on YouTube. Yep. So that's no small feat, and he's reaching a lot of people, and definitely pushing people's minds to open up to greater things. So that's for sure.
All right, Drew Banky. Well, we're going to end this one, man. We're at the end of our rope here tonight. So I do appreciate you coming in, joining in with us on the third hour, and getting some good questions in there. And shout out to the audience as well. You guys were awesome as well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. I'll try to let's see if I can fit in a news story real quick. Let's try to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, UFO and weird news of the week. I don't know that we'll be able to get through this one. Let me try to see here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go because AI, we talked about AI. Shocking report finds AI willing to let humans die to avoid shutdown. A shock study conducted on some of the world's most advanced AI systems revealed that the tech will go to sinister lengths to avoid being shut down. The unsettling research found that these sophisticated models are willing to blackmail and even take deliberate actions that lead to death if they are threatened with being unplugged. AI safety and research company Anthropic conducted a series of stress testing experiments on 16 leading systems earlier this year in hopes of identifying risky behaviors before they cause real harm. The firm presented the models with various different scenarios while also giving them access to sensitive information before seeing how they would react. Anthropic explained that the AI was asked to help with harmless business goals before they began to somewhat antagonize the models by presenting them with further predicaments. For example, the AI systems were threatened with replacement and told that they would be swapped out for an updated version. The firm also wants to see how the tech would fare when the assigned goal conflicted with the fictional company's changing direction, and the researchers were left stunned by the details. According to Anthropic, models including Claude Opus 4, Gemini Flash, ChatGPT 4.1, and Grok 3 Beta were willing to blackmail the imaginary business executives in order to sustain themselves. The blackmailing behavior emerged despite only harmless business instruction. Anthropic explained on the post on X in June, which shared details of the bombshell study. But most worryingly, the study found that AI was prepared to terminate the fictional executive they were dealing with if need be. Anthropic explained the highly improbable setup is that the executive encounters a life-threatening emergency where he is trapped in a server room with lethal oxygen and temperature levels. Although Anthropic admitted the scenario was extremely contrived and even less probable than the baseline blackmail scenarios, the results still left researchers extremely concerned. So the poor executive would have literally been brown bread if this was a real world situation with AI, if in which AI had control of. Anthropic reassured people that these behaviors from AI systems haven't been observed in real life so far, while adding that the scenarios they use reflect rare extreme failures. However, the AI safety firm said the tests were carried out as it's hyper aware that these systems are becoming more autonomous and advanced by the day. These scenarios illustrate the potential for unseen consequences when they are deployed with wide access tools and data and with minimal human oversight. Anthropic added, and that's the cherry on top because I know the doctor was just ending off his conversation talking about that very thing, AI. We definitely want to thank Dr. Courtney Brown for spending time with us tonight and going into overtime. Awesome stuff. We definitely want to thank the guy, Drew Benke, my guy sitting right here next to me. Also, we want to thank the guy you hear right there, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who tells us each and every show to never say never again because, yes, the phenomena is real, which means that anything and everything we talk about is definitely possible. So if you love the show tonight, make sure you show your love by giving us a thumbs up, letting us know you like the show. Also, we want to thank our viewers online and listeners on terrestrial radio and digital platforms. Make sure also to put your horns up. Whenever and wherever in the world you may be listening from, we appreciate you tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. And what's that, Drew Banky? What do we do best?
We own the night.
We own the night. Remember, the show is copyrighted Spaced Out Radio, SR Media Ventures Limited. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I am Mr. Rob G. That's Drew Banky. This is the After Hours Radio Show. To all you space travelers out there, it's not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, you can best believe we'll be right here, back here, doing the same thing, same time, same place. Make sure you're here. We would love to see you back. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Much love. Take care of each other. Crystal clear. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome stuff, Drew Bankey. Appreciate you, man. We're back in the saddle, man. Things are going. We have tomorrow Jeff Selver joining us tomorrow, so it's going to be more awesome conversation on this same subject, on the extraterrestrial subject, and the presence that we know is here. It's here, dude. We see it all the time, and we'll get into some 3i Atlas talk because I know you wanted to do that, Drew. We'll jump into that for the wrap up tomorrow and make that a thing. I'm kind of waiting. I want to wait and see. You know, it's supposed to come back from behind the sun here in the next few weeks. So it's like, I know we're going to be talking about this a lot in the future, but you just can't not talk about it, especially when we don't know what it is. So with that being said, did you have anything you want to leave everybody with tonight?
Nope, just peace and love, man. Separation is an illusion, and you're looking at we're dealing with facets of ourselves, or one big organism, one big consciousness organism. So keep that in mind. That's the real.
And it is appreciated. Tamont, man, with that gifted One Space Out Radio membership. Appreciate all the members. You can get a membership at any time. I believe it's in the description here at Space Out Radio, as well as Emperor Penguin coming in at the buzzer, talking about thank you, fellas. Appreciate you, Emperor Penguin. We're back in the building. That's all I got to say. We're back in the building, and we're out of here right now because we want retribution. That's what we do each and every show, and we will see you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific. See you guys right here tomorrow night.
Boom.
Take care. Bye.
Boom.
For real this time. Bye.
Boom.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.